One touch from Ambassador Samuel Wells' hand sends shockwaves through the Ithorian diplomatic reception. Tara, an Ithorian female, gasps as her skin erupts in vibrant, swirling patterns where his fingers brushed her arm. The gathered dignitaries fall silent, eyes fixed on the impossible sight before them. "What have you done?" Tara whispers, her voice trembling as she examines the intricate markings now etched permanently into her flesh. Samuel steps back, confusion evident on his face. I don't understand. What's happening?" The reception hall erupts into chaos. Ithorian females recoil from the human delegates, their usual composure shattered by fear of irreversible transformation. Male Ithorians form a protective circle around their female counterparts, eyes narrow with suspicion and barely contained anger. "Contain the humans," an Ithorian security chief bellows. "No one leaves this room until we understand what's going on." Samuel finds himself surrounded by a wall of stern-faced Ithorian guards. Their elongated necks crane forward in unmistakable aggression. He raises his hands in a placating gesture, mind racing to comprehend the sudden turn of events. Across the room, a team of Ithorian scientists converges on Tara. They produce scanning devices, passing them over her newly marked skin with growing astonishment. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen," one scientist mutters. "The pigmentation change appears to be on a cellular level. It's permanent." The word permanent ripples through the crowd, igniting a fresh wave of panic among the Ithorian females. Some begin to weep, others demand immediate action from their government representatives. High Counselor Miran, the highest-ranking Ithorian present, steps forward. His usually serene features are tight with concern. "Ambassador Wells, you and your staff will be escorted to the human embassy immediately. For your own safety, you are to remain there until further notice." Samuel nods, recognizing the gravity of the situation. As he's led away, his eyes lock with Tara's. There's fear in her gaze, yes, but also a spark of something else. Curiosity? Fascination? The connection between them feels electric, transcending the chaos erupting around them. Once Samuel is gone, Moran turns to address the agitated crowd. "My fellow Ithorians, please remain calm. I am calling an emergency session of the High Council. We will get to the bottom of this unprecedented situation." But calm is in short supply. News of the incident spreads like wildfire through the capital city. Within hours, the Ithorian government issues a planet-wide alert. All human visitors are to be restricted to designated areas immediately. In orbit, the captain of the human diplomatic vessel receives an urgent transmission from Earth. "Captain, we're receiving demands for explanations from the Ithorian government. What the hell is going on down there?" The captain sighs, rubbing his temples. "Sir, you're not going to believe this, but it seems our touch can mark Ithorian females. Permanently." Back in the human embassy, Samuel paces his quarters, the full weight of the diplomatic crisis settling on his shoulders. He's been briefed on the developing situation, the panic spreading among Ithorian females, the potential fallout for human-Ithorian relations, even whispers of how this could affect humanity's standing in the galactic community. Yet amid the storm of political implications, Samuel can't shake the memory of that brief contact with Tara. The way her skin bloomed with color beneath his touch, the jolt of connection he felt in that moment. It was as if, for a split second, he glimpsed something profound and beautiful about the nature of their two-species interaction. As night falls on Ithor, tensions continue to rise. Unknown to the humans or the Ithorian authorities, a group of radical Ithorian males gather in secret, seeing opportunity in the chaos. "Brothers," their leader intones, "this is our chance. We can use this human threat to finally bring our females under proper control, for their protection, of course." The first day of the crisis draws to a close, leaving Samuel Wells caught between diplomatic disaster and an inexplicable personal fascination. As he stares out at the alien skyline, one question burns in his mind. What will tomorrow bring for humans and Ithorians alike? As dawn broke over Ithor's capital, the human embassy buzzed with nervous energy. Ambassador Samuel Wells had barely slept, his mind racing with the implications of yesterday's events. He stood at the window, watching the city slowly come to life, when a soft knock at his door startled him from his reverie. "Ambassador, it's Dr. Kira. We need to talk." Samuel opened the door to find a tall, slender Ithorian female. Her elongated neck swayed gently as she entered, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "What I'm about to propose is highly unorthodox," Dr. Kira began, her voice barely above a whisper. "But given the circumstances, I believe it's necessary." She explained her plan, a secret meeting between Samuel and Tara, the Ithorian female he had accidentally marked. Samuel's pulse quickened at the mention of Tara's name. "Why the secrecy?" he asked, though he already suspected the answer. "The markings on Tara's skin, they're exhibiting unusual properties, enhanced sensory perception, accelerated healing. We need to understand what's happening, Ambassador, for both our species' sake." Hours later, Samuel found himself in a hidden laboratory deep within the embassy. The room was stark and clinical, a sharp contrast to the ornate diplomatic chambers he was accustomed to. And there, standing nervously by an examination table, was Tara. Their eyes met, and Samuel felt an electric current run through him. The vibrant patterns on Tara's skin seemed to pulse with life, drawing him in. "Hello, Ambassador," Tara said softly, her voice a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "Please, call me Samuel," he replied, surprised by the intimacy in his own voice. Dr. Kira cleared her throat, breaking the moment. "Shall we begin?" Over the next few hours, Samuel and Tara participated in a series of controlled experiments under Dr. Kira's watchful eye. Each touch between them sent cascades of color rippling across Tara's skin. Samuel marveled at the sensation, the warmth that spread through his fingertips with each contact. As the test progressed, Samuel couldn't help but notice the way Tara's eyes lingered on him, the slight tremor in her breath when they touched. He found himself equally drawn to her, fascinated by the graceful curve of her neck, the intelligence shining in her eyes. Their growing attraction didn't go unnoticed by Dr. Kira, who watched with a mixture of scientific interest and personal concern. "Perhaps we should take a break," she suggested, noting the intensity building between the two. But before they could respond, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Samuel rushed to the communication panel, his heart racing. "Ambassador!" It was his security chief, voice tight with tension. "We have a situation. A group of radical Ithorians have gathered outside the embassy. They're demanding all humans be deported immediately." Samuel's mind raced. He looked at Tara, saw the fear in her eyes, and made a decision. "Lock down the embassy. No one in or out without my direct authorization." As the sounds of the protest filtered through the walls, Samuel turned back to Tara and Dr. Kira. "We need to continue. Whatever's happening between us, it could be the key to resolving this crisis." Tara nodded, her tenacity matching his own. She extended her hand and Samuel took it without hesitation. The moment their palms touched, something extraordinary happened. A wave of sensation washed over them both. Samuel gasped, suddenly overwhelmed by a flood of emotions that weren't his own. Fear, curiosity, and a deep burning attraction. He looked at Tara in amazement, realizing he was feeling what she felt. I can sense you," Tara whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "Your thoughts, your emotions, how is this possible?" Dr. Kira frantically recorded data on her tablet, her scientific curiosity overriding her shock. "It appears prolonged contact has created some sort of empathic link between you. This is unprecedented." As they explored this new connection, Tara's body began to change further. Her skin took on a soft, bioluminescent glow, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Before their eyes, the color of her skin shifted, blending seamlessly with the background. "Remarkable," Dr. Kira breathed. "She's developed camouflage abilities. The implications of this are staggering." Outside, the protests grew louder. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the building, followed by shouts and the thud of running feet. Samuel's communicator crackled to life. "Ambassador, the situation is escalating. We can't hold them back much longer." He looked at Tara, torn between his duty and the inexplicable bond forming between them. In that moment, through their empathic link, he felt her fear, her confusion, but also a deep well of courage. We need to continue, Tara said, echoing his earlier words. Whatever's happening to me, to us, it could change everything between our species. As if in response to her willpower, Tara's skin flared brightly, bathing the room in a warm, otherworldly glow. Samuel reached out, drawn by an irresistible urge to touch her again, to deepen their connection. Their fingers intertwined just as the laboratory door burst open. In the doorway stood Counselor Zorn, leader of the radical Ithorian group, his eyes blazing with a mixture of disgust and triumph. "So," he snarled, "this is what you've been hiding." Samuel moved to shield Tara, acutely aware of the danger they now faced. Through their link, he sensed her fear, but also a steely purpose. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Together. Samuel's heart raced as he faced Counselor Zorn, acutely aware of the danger they were in. Through their newfound empathic link, he could sense Tara's fear mingling with his own, creating a potent cocktail of emotions. Before anyone could react, alarms blared throughout the embassy. A computerized voice echoed through the corridors. "Security breach detected, initiating emergency evacuation protocols." Samuel's training kicked in. He grabbed Tara's hand, feeling a surge of energy course through him at the contact. "This way," he shouted to Dr. Kira, pulling Tara towards a hidden panel in the wall. As they sprinted down a narrow corridor, Samuel could hear the angry shouts of Zorn and his followers behind them. The secret passageway twisted and turned, designed to confuse potential pursuers. Samuel led the way, guided by his knowledge of the embassy's layout and driven by an overwhelming need to protect Tara. They emerged into a dimly lit service tunnel. Samuel paused, catching his breath and assessing their situation. He turned to check on Tara and gasped. Her skin was glowing brighter than ever, pulsing with an otherworldly light that seemed to respond to her rapid heartbeat. "Are you all right?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. Tara nodded, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. "I feel different, powerful." Their moment of respite was short-lived. Heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor, growing louder by the second. Samuel looked around frantically for an escape route, but they were trapped in a dead end. "Stay behind me," he said, positioning himself between Tara and the approaching danger. As Zorn's followers rounded the corner, Tara let out a gasp. Samuel felt a surge of energy through their linked hands, and suddenly a wave of bioelectric energy pulsed from Tara's body. The Ithorian radicals stumbled, momentarily stunned by the unexpected assault. "Run!" Samuel yelled, pulling Tara past the incapacitated Ithorians. They raced through the embassy's lower levels, eventually finding their way to an emergency exit. As they burst out into the chaotic streets of the Ithorian capital, Samuel realized with a pang that Dr. Kira was no longer with them. In the confusion of their escape, they had become separated. The city was in uproar. Protesters filled the streets, their angry chants echoing off the buildings. Samuel and Tara ducked into a narrow alley, trying to catch their breath and formulate a plan. "We need to find somewhere safe," Samuel said, his mind racing. "Somewhere we can figure out what's happening to you." Tara nodded, her skin still shimmering with bioluminescent patterns. "I know a place," she whispered. "There's a group. They might be able to help us." Following Tara's lead, they navigated through the city's underbelly, avoiding the main thoroughfares and sticking to back alleys and hidden passages. As they moved, Samuel noticed that Tara's proximity was affecting nearby Ithorians. Females they passed would pause, their skin briefly flickering with a faint glow. After what felt like hours of tense navigation through the city, they arrived at a nondescript building in a quiet industrial district. Tara knocked on a hidden panel, and after a tense moment, a section of the wall slid open. They were greeted by an Ithorian female with striking violet markings. Her eyes widened as she took in Tara's glowing form and Samuel's human features. "I am Lara," she said, her voice low and measured. "We've been expecting you." As Lara led them deeper into the hidden complex, Samuel marveled at the sophisticated laboratory equipment and the number of Ithorian females bustling about. Many paused in their work to stare at Tara, their own skin beginning to shimmer in response to her presence. "Welcome to our sanctuary," Lara said, gesturing around her. We are a group of Ithorian females who have been experimenting, pushing the boundaries of our biology. And now it seems you two have stumbled upon something that could change everything. Samuel felt a mix of relief and apprehension. They were safe for the moment, but he couldn't shake the feeling that they had just stepped into something much bigger than they realized. As if sensing his thoughts, Tara squeezed his hand. Through their link, he felt her curiosity and excitement, tempered by a hint of fear. Whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Lara led them to a private room, equipped with various scanners and monitoring devices. "We need to understand what's happening to you," she explained. "With your permission, we'd like to run some tests." Before Samuel could respond, his communicator buzzed. He pulled it out, seeing an encrypted message from an unknown sender. As he read it, his brow furrowed. "What is it?" Tara asked, sensing his unease. Samuel looked up, his expression torn. "It's from a Dr. Skora of the Galactic Xenobiology Institute. She wants us to come to a secure facility for study." He paused, looking between Tara and Lara. "We have a choice to make." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "The scientific establishment will only seek to control and contain you. Here we can explore the full potential of your connection, free from outside interference." Samuel felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him. As a diplomat, he knew the importance of working through official channels. But as he looked at Tara, feeling the intensity of their bond, he wondered if traditional approaches could ever hope to understand what was happening between them. The room fell silent as Samuel grappled with the choice before him. Outside, the sounds of the city and turmoil filtered through, a stark reminder of the crisis unfolding around them. Whatever he decided would not only affect their future, but could potentially reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Samuel took a deep breath, his gaze shifting between Tara and Lara. The weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. Through their empathic link, he sensed Tara's persistence and trust. It was that unwavering connection that solidified his choice. "We'll stay," Samuel announced, his voice firm. "If we're going to understand this, we need to do it on our own terms." Lara nodded, a mix of relief and excitement flickering across her features. "Then we must act quickly. I have a plan, but it will require great courage from both of you." As Lara outlined her daring strategy to broadcast their empathic connection to all Ithorians, Samuel felt a surge of both anticipation and apprehension. The stakes were enormous, but so was the potential for change. "There's an ancient communication hub hidden in the jungles," Lara explained, pulling up a holographic map. "If we can reach it, we might be able to share your connection with every Ithorian on the planet." Tara's skin pulsed with a soft, mesmerizing light. "How far is it?" "A day's journey through some of the densest jungle on Ithor," Lara replied. "We'll need to leave immediately if we hope to stay ahead of those who would stop us." Without further delay, they gathered supplies and slipped out of the sanctuary under the cover of pre-dawn darkness. As they made their way through the outskirts of the city, Samuel couldn't help but notice the chaos their presence had sparked. Ithorian security forces patrolled the streets, their movements agitated and purposeful. Once they reached the jungle's edge, Lara took point, guiding them along hidden paths and overgrown trails. The Ithorian wilderness was like nothing Samuel had ever experienced, a riot of color and sound, with flora and fauna that defied imagination. As they pushed deeper into the jungle, Samuel noticed something extraordinary. Whenever Tara brushed against a plant or an insect buzzed too close, her skin would emit a subtle, shimmering mist. The effect was immediate. Aggressive vines recoiled, and even a particularly menacing-looking creature with too many teeth slunk away after one whiff. "Tara," Samuel whispered, awe evident in his voice, "I think you're developing some kind of calming pheromone." She looked at her hands in wonder, watching as the mist dissipated. "I can feel it. It's like I'm connected to everything around us." Lara, overhearing their exchange, smiled knowingly. "Your bond is evolving, adapting to our world. It's remarkable." As they trekked onward, Samuel's thoughts turned to the wider implications of their journey. He knew that by now, their disappearance would have been noted. He could almost picture the diplomatic furor their actions must have sparked. His suspicions were confirmed when, Hours into their journey, they heard the distant whine of aircraft engines. The group froze, pressing themselves against the massive trunk of a gnarled tree. "Earth vessels," Samuel murmured, recognizing the sound. "They must have sent a search party." Lyra's expression darkened. "We must move faster. If they've involved off-world forces, the Ithorian government will see it as a provocation. It could escalate the situation beyond our control." They pushed on, their pace grueling. As the day wore on, the jungle grew denser, the air thick with humidity and the calls of unseen creatures. Samuel found himself constantly reaching for Tara, their physical contact not just a comfort, but a necessity. Each touch sent a jolt of energy through him, reinvigorating his tired muscles. As dusk approached, Lyra called for a halt. They had reached a small clearing dominated by the twisted roots of an enormous tree. "We'll rest here for a few hours, Oricon," she announced. "The hub isn't far now, but we'll need our strength for what's ahead." Samuel and Tara gratefully sank to the ground, their backs pressed against one of the massive roots. As the others busied themselves with setting up a small camp, Samuel turned to Tara, struck by the ethereal beauty of her bioluminescent skin in the gathering darkness. "How are you holding up?" he asked softly, his hand finding hers. Tara's eyes met his, a swirl of emotions passing between them through their link. "I'm scared," she admitted, "but also excited. I feel like we're on the verge of something incredible." Samuel nodded, understanding completely. He opened his mouth to respond, but the words died on his lips as Tara leaned in, closing the distance between them. Their lips met, and the world around them seemed to fade away. The kiss deepened, months of tension and unspoken attraction finally finding release. Samuel's hands tangled in Tara's hair as her skin began to pulse with an intensity he'd never seen before. Waves of light rippled across her body, growing brighter and brighter until the entire clearing was bathed in a soft, otherworldly glow. Lost in the moment, neither of them noticed the sudden hush that fell over the jungle, nor the alarmed looks exchanged by Lyra and the others. They were oblivious to the fact that their passionate encounter had just turned them into a beacon, visible for miles around. It wasn't until Lyra's urgent voice cut through their haze that they broke apart, suddenly aware of the luminous display they'd created. "We need to move now," Lyra hissed, already gathering their supplies. "That light show will have drawn attention from every direction." As if to emphasize her point, the distant sound of engines could be heard once more, closer this time, and coming from multiple directions. Samuel and Tara scrambled to their feet, the gravity of their situation sinking in. They plunged back into the jungle, all thoughts of rest forgotten. As they ran, Samuel could feel the tension mounting through his link with Tara. Whatever came next, he knew they were racing headlong into a confrontation that would change everything. The ancient communication hub loomed ahead, a structure of impossible geometry half buried in the jungle growth. But between them and their goal, Samuel could hear the sounds of pursuit growing ever closer. They were out of time, and the true test of their bond was about to begin. As they neared the hub, the jungle erupted into chaos. The luminous display created by Samuel and Tara's passionate encounter had not faded. Instead, it intensified, spreading through the surrounding vegetation like wildfire. Vines coiled with ethereal light. Leaves shimmered with otherworldly patterns, and even the soil beneath their feet pulsed with a soft, alien glow. What's happening?" Samuel gasped, his eyes wide as he took in the transformed landscape. Lyra's expression was a mix of awe and concern. "Your connection. It's affecting the ecosystem on a scale I've never seen before." The distant sound of engines grew louder, accompanied by the sharp crack of branches breaking under heavy footfalls. Their pursuers were closing in, drawn by the beacon of light that now engulfed the entire area. "We need to move," Tara urged, her skin still pulsing with bioluminescence. She reached for Samuel's hand, and as their fingers intertwined, a surge of energy coursed through them both. The group pushed forward, navigating the glowing undergrowth with increasing difficulty. The plants seemed to react to their presence, some recoiling while others reached out with curious tendrils. Tara's newfound ability to calm the local flora proved invaluable, as she projected waves of soothing energy that cleared their path. As they emerged from a particularly dense thicket, a towering structure came into view. The ancient communication hub rose before them, its impossible geometry defying the natural growth of the jungle. Spiraling towers of an unknown material pierced the canopy, while curved surfaces reflected the bioluminescent glow of the surrounding vegetation. Samuel felt a surge of hope. "We made it," he breathed, but their relief was short-lived. As they approached the hub's perimeter, an invisible barrier shimmered into existence. Tara stumbled, crying out in pain as she collided with the energy field. "Tara!" Samuel caught her as she fell back, her skin flickering erratically. "What's wrong?" Lyra's eyes narrowed as she examined the barrier. "It's some kind of energy field. It's interfering with Tara's biology." Samuel felt a wave of panic through their empathic link. Tara's transformation was destabilizing, the connection between them growing weaker with each passing moment. "We need to find a way through," he said, desperately scanning the perimeter for any sign of an entrance. As if in answer to his plea, a gravelly voice called out from the shadows. "You seek entry to the Old One's place of power?" The group turned to see an elderly Ithorian emerge from a hidden alcove in the hub's base. His skin was weathered and pale, marked with faded bioluminescent patterns that spoke of great age. "I am Zan," the old Ithorian announced. "I have guarded this place for more cycles than I care to count." Lyra stepped forward, her voice urgent. "We need to access the hub's communication systems. The fate of our people may depend on it." Zan's eyes narrowed as he studied the group, his gaze lingering on Samuel and Tara. "I see the change in you, young one," he said to Tara. "The old ones spoke of such unions, but I never thought to witness it myself." A series of explosions echoed through the jungle, followed by the whine of aircraft engines. Their pursuers were almost upon them. "Please," Samuel implored, supporting Tara as she struggled to remain standing. "We don't have much time." Zan nodded slowly. "I can grant you entry, but be warned. The systems within are ancient and unpredictable. Activating them may have consequences beyond your imagining." Before they could respond, the energy barrier flickered and parted, revealing a narrow entrance. Zan gestured for them to follow, leading them into the heart of the mysterious structure. As they entered, Samuel felt a tingling sensation wash over him. The interior of the hub was a maze of twisting corridors and chambers, filled with technology beyond his comprehension. Crystalline interfaces pulsed with stored information, while holographic displays flickered to life as they passed. Tara's condition seemed to stabilize once they were inside, but Samuel could still feel the strain their separation from the outside world was causing. Zan led them to a central chamber dominated by a massive spherical device. "This is the heart of the communication system," he explained. "But to activate it, you must pass the trials set by the old ones." Before them, a series of intricate biological and technological puzzles materialized. Glowing symbols danced across curved surfaces, while organic tendrils reached out, seeking connection. "We don't have time for trials," Lyra protested, glancing nervously at the entrance. But Samuel and Tara were already moving, their hands intertwined as they approached the first challenge. Through their empathic link, they coordinated their movements with uncanny precision, solving puzzles that would have taken others hours to decipher. As they worked, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. The clash of weapons and shouted orders echoed through the hub's corridors. "They're inside," Lyra warned, positioning herself defensively near the chamber's entrance. Samuel and Tara redoubled their efforts, their shared consciousness allowing them to process information at an astonishing rate. With each solved puzzle, the spherical device at the center of the chamber pulsed with increasing energy. Just as they completed the final trial, the chamber doors burst open. Colonel Hawthorne and his Earth military team stormed in, weapons raised. Behind them, Counselor Zorn and a contingent of Ithorian security forces followed. "Step away from the device," Hawthorne ordered, training his weapon on Samuel and Tara. But it was too late. The communication hub surged to life, bathing the chamber in a blinding light. Samuel and Tara stood at its center, their bodies enveloped in a swirling vortex of energy. As the light intensified, Samuel felt their consciousness expanding, reaching out beyond the confines of the hub. He could sense the minds of Ithorians across the planet, a vast network of thoughts and emotions suddenly laid bare. In that moment of connection, everything hung in the balance. The fate of two species, the future of an entire world, all rested on what would happen next. The energy buildup reached a crescendo, and Samuel knew they were on the cusp of something monumental. But as the power of the ancient device coursed through them, he couldn't help but wonder, what unforeseen consequences would their actions unleash? Unleash? As the question formed in Samuel's mind, the swirling vortex of energy suddenly intensified, engulfing them completely. In that moment of overwhelming power, Samuel felt a presence beside him. It was Zan, the elderly Ithorian hermit who had granted them entry. The old guardian's weathered hands moved with surprising speed, manipulating holographic controls that materialize within the energy field. "The system requires more than just activation," Zan shouted over the deafening hum of the device. "It needs guidance." Samuel nodded, understanding flooding through him as he and Tara instinctively reached out to touch the shimmering controls. Their fingers danced across the ethereal interface, their movements guided by a combination of Zan's ancient knowledge and their own intuitive connection to the technology. As they worked, Samuel became aware of the chaos unfolding around them. Colonel Hawthorne's team was advancing, their weapons trained on the group. Counselor Zorn's forces pushed forward as well, their faces a mixture of awe and perseverance. Lyra's voice cut through the din. "We need more power. The system's defenses are still active." Without hesitation, Lyra stepped forward, grasping Tara's free hand. The other Ithorian females in their group followed suit, forming a living chain of glowing bodies. As each new link was added, Samuel felt the energy coursing through them intensify. The crystal structure at the heart of the chamber began to vibrate, emitting a low, resonant tone that seemed to penetrate to the very core of Samuel's being. He could feel the combined bioelectric energy of the linked Ithorians flowing through him and Tara, amplifying their connection to the ancient technology. "It's working!" Tara exclaimed, her voice strained but triumphant. The holographic controls pulsed with newfound life, responding to their touch with increasing speed and precision. Samuel's mind raced as he processed the influx of information, his human perspective allowing him to see patterns and solutions that might have eluded others. Just as they seemed on the verge of breakthrough, a wave of discomfort washed over him. He felt his connection to Tara weakening, their shared consciousness becoming clouded and disjointed. "The empathic disruptor!" Lyra shouted, her eyes wide with alarm. "They're trying to sever your bond." Samuel gritted his teeth, fighting against the encroaching interference. He could see the pain etched on Tara's face, her bioluminescent patterns flickering erratically as she struggled to maintain their connection. In that moment of desperation, a new voice rang out. "Stand down immediately! This is Ambassador Steele of the Earth Diplomatic Corps." The unexpected interruption caused a momentary lull in the confrontation. Samuel glanced over to see the ambassador striding into the chamber, flanked by a group of moderate Ithorian officials. Steele's eyes widened as he took in the scene before him. "Colonel Hawthorne, what in God's name do you think you're doing? This is a gross violation of our agreement with the Ithorian government." Before Hawthorne could respond, the crystal structure flared to life with blinding intensity. The surge of power emanating from it overwhelmed the empathic disruptor, shattering the device in a shower of sparks. A massive pulse of energy radiated outward from the hub, washing over everyone in the chamber. Samuel felt a moment of vertigo as the world around him seemed to ripple and distort. As the light faded and his vision cleared, Samuel gasped at the sight before him. The Ithorian females linked in the chain had undergone a startling transformation. Their bodies glowed with newfound bioluminescence, patterns swirling across their skin in complex, ever-changing formations. Tara's eyes met his, filled with wonder and a hint of fear. "Samuel, I can feel them all. It's like we're all connected now." The implications of what had just occurred began to sink in, but before anyone could fully process the situation, a new complication arose. A sleek, unfamiliar spacecraft descended from the sky, touching down just outside the hub. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent sheen that seemed to shift colors in the bioluminescent light of the jungle. The ship's hatch opened with a hiss, and a figure emerged, Tall and lithe, with scaled skin and eyes that sparkled like polished gems, the newcomer exuded an air of confidence and cunning. "Well, well," the alien purred, her voice carrying a musical lilt. "What have we here? It seems I've stumbled upon quite the interesting gathering." She sauntered into the chamber, seemingly unperturbed by the tension that crackled through the air. Her gaze swept over the assembled humans and Ithorians, lingering on the transformed females and the still-active crystal structure. "Allow me to introduce myself," she said with a flourish. "I am Captain Zera of the Traxian Merchant Guild, and I believe I may have a proposition that could benefit us all." Samuel exchanged a wary glance with Tara. The arrival of this unexpected player had just added a new layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Whatever Zera's proposal might be, it was clear that the fate of human-Ithorian relations, and perhaps much more, hung in the balance. The tension in the chamber reached a fever pitch as Captain Zera's words hung in the air. Before anyone could respond, a surge of energy pulsed through the transformed Ithorian females, causing their bioluminescent patterns to flare brilliantly. Samuel gasped as he felt the change ripple through Tara and the others. The bioelectric energy emanating from them seemed to resonate with the surrounding jungle, causing the bioluminescent flora to shift and dance in mesmerizing patterns. "What's happening?" Lara asked, her voice tinged with awe and confusion. Ambassador Steele stepped forward, his diplomatic training kicking in despite the chaos. "Captain Zera, while we appreciate your offer, this is a delicate matter between Earth and the Ithorian government. We cannot simply—" His words were cut short as Colonel Hawthorne interjected. "With all due respect, Ambassador, this situation has escalated beyond simple diplomacy. We need to secure this technology before—" "Before what, Colonel?" Steele snapped, his composure slipping. "Before you can weaponize it? Your unauthorized presence here has already jeopardized our relations with the Ithorians." As the humans argued, Samuel felt a shift in his connection with Tara. Their empathic link intensified, expanding to encompass the other transformed Ithorians. Suddenly, he could sense their thoughts, their emotions, all interconnected in a complex psychic web. "Tara," he whispered, "are you feeling this?" She nodded, her eyes wide. "It's incredible. We're all connected now." Taking advantage of the humans' distraction, Counselor Zorn barked orders to his remaining loyal forces. "Secure the crystal structure! Quickly!" As Zorn's team moved towards the pulsing crystal at the heart of the chamber, Samuel felt a surge of alarm through the newly formed psychic network. Without a word, he and Tara began to move in perfect synchronization with the other transformed Ithorians, forming a defensive perimeter around the ancient technology. Zan's gravelly voice cut through the chaos. "Stop! The crystal is becoming unstable. If we don't contain it, the energy release could be catastrophic." The warning froze everyone in their tracks. The crystal's pulsing intensified, its glow becoming almost painfully bright. Captain Zera, seeing an opportunity, stepped forward. "My ship is equipped with advanced containment technology. We could stabilize the crystal and prevent any unwanted incidents." Before anyone could respond to her offer, the chamber doors burst open once again. Dr. Elena Skora and Dr. Kira rushed in, their faces etched with urgency. "Wahiyubayim, we have critical information," Dr. Skora announced, her eyes darting between the transformed Ithorians and the unstable crystal. "The transformations are irreversible, and prolonged exposure could trigger similar changes in other species, including humans." A hush fell over the chamber as the implications of her words sank in. The silence was broken by the sound of a massive ship descending from the sky, its shadow visible through the chamber's translucent ceiling. "It's an Ithorian warship," Lara said, her voice filled with a mix of relief and apprehension. Moments later, the imposing figure of High Counselor Thex entered the chamber, flanked by a contingent of Ithorian officials. His piercing gaze swept across the scene, taking in the transformed Ithorians, the pulsing crystal, and the assembled factions. Samuel felt a surge of dedication through his link with Tara. Together they approached the crystal structure, their movements mirrored by the other transformed Ithorians. As they made contact with the ancient technology, a flood of information poured into their shared consciousness. It's alive, Amar, Tara gasped. The crystal, it's semi-sentient. It's been waiting for us. Samuel's mind raced as he processed the fragmented data. There's something about a threat, a danger to the galaxy that the ancient Ithorians prepared for. High Counselor Thex stepped forward, his voice resonating with authority. Explain yourselves, all of you. As the various factions scrambled to present their cases, Samuel and Tara remained connected to the crystal, sifting through the ancient knowledge it contained. They knew that their next actions would be crucial, not just for themselves but for the future of human-Ithorian relations and possibly the future of the cosmos. The crystal's pulsing grew more erratic, its energy levels fluctuating dangerously. Captain Zera, sensing the urgency of the situation, made her move. High Counselor, she said, her voice smooth and persuasive. My containment technology could stabilize the crystal and buy us time to fully understand its purpose. Surely, in the interest of galactic security, we can set aside our differences and work together. As Thex considered Zera's proposal, Samuel and Tara exchanged a look. Through their enhanced connection, they silently agreed on a course of action. Whatever secrets the crystal held, whatever ancient threat it was designed to combat, they knew they had to protect it and harness its power responsibly. With the transformed Ithorians at their side and the fate of two species hanging in the balance, Samuel and Tara prepared to make their case to High Counselor Thex. The next few moments would determine not just their future, but potentially the course of galactic history. History. As Samuel opened his mouth to speak, a blinding surge of energy erupted from the crystal structure, silencing all present and bathing the chamber in an intense, pulsating light. The transformed Ithorians reacted instantly, their bioluminescent patterns synchronizing and amplifying in response to the crystal's output. Samuel and Tara gasped as the energy coursed through their linked minds, their connection to the ancient technology deepening beyond anything they had experienced before. What's happening? Ambassador Steele shouted, shielding his eyes from the intensifying glow. Before anyone could respond, the energy coalesced into a massive swirling vortex that extended high into the atmosphere. The chamber's translucent ceiling offered a breathtaking view of the phenomenon as it pierced the clouds, visible even from orbit. Captain Zera's eyes widened with a mixture of awe and concern. My ship! She exclaimed, rushing to the chamber's entrance. Outside, her sleek vessel shuddered and sparked as its systems went haywire, the energy vortex interfering with its delicate technology. High Counselor Thex's communicator crackled to life, filled with panicked reports from his warship. High Counselor, we're losing control. The vortex is affecting our systems. As the vortex's pull intensified, loose objects began to lift off the ground, swirling in the air. The assembled factions scrambled to maintain their footing, grasping onto whatever solid structures they could find. Samuel and Tara, still linked to the crystal, felt a flood of information pouring into their minds. Ancient schematics and long-forgotten protocols flashed before their eyes, revealing the true nature of the technology they had awakened. It's a defense system, Tara said, her voice filled with wonder. The whole planet. It's designed to protect Ithor from some kind of cosmic threat. Samuel nodded, processing the information alongside her. The transformations, the energy surges, it's all part of reactivating the system, but it needs more power, more. His words trailed off as he realized the implications of what they had set in motion. The vortex continued to grow, its influence extending far beyond the communication hub. In the distance, massive storm clouds gathered, and powerful winds began to whip through the jungle, uprooting trees and scattering debris. The transformed Ithorians, acting on some deep-seated instinct, formed a protective circle around the hub. Their bodies glowed with an otherworldly light as they created a barrier against the intensifying storm, their combined energy pulsing in harmony with the crystal's rhythm. High Counselor Thex, his face etched with concern, approached Samuel and Tara. What have you discovered? What is happening to our world? As Samuel began to explain, Counselor Zorn saw an opportunity in the chaos. With a snarl, he lunged forward, attempting to physically separate Samuel and Tara. Stop this madness, he shouted. Break their connection. The moment Zorn's hands made contact with them, the transformed Ithorians reacted with startling speed. They surged forward, creating a living wall between the humans and the crystal structure. Their normally placid features were contorted with protective fury, bioluminescent patterns flashing in aggressive displays. Colonel Hawthorne, seeing the situation spiraling out of control, barked orders to his team. "Secure the crystal. We can't let this technology fall into the wrong hands." As Hawthorne's soldiers moved to comply, Zera and her crew saw their chance. They darted between the warring factions, grabbing at pieces of ancient technology and stuffing them into bags. The escalating conflict sent shockwaves through the energy vortex. The swirling maelstrom intensified, tearing chunks of Earth from the ground and pulling them into its luminous maw. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and bend around them as the vortex's power grew exponentially. Amidst the chaos, Dr. Elena Scora's voice cut through the din. "Wait, everyone, stop! I've made a breakthrough!" The urgency in her tone gave even the most determined combatants pause. Scora rushed to Samuel and Tara's side, her eyes alight with discovery. "The transformations," she said breathlessly, "they're not random mutations. It's activation of dormant genetic code that must have been engineered by the ancient Ithorians." As the implications of Scora's words sank in, Samuel and Tara exchanged a look of unyielding commitment. Through their enhanced connection, they came to a silent agreement. "We know what we have to do," Samuel announced, his voice carrying over the howling wind. "We need to fully interface with the crystal structure. It's the only way to stabilize the defense system and save Ithor." Tara nodded, her grip on Samuel's hand tightening. "But we have to warn you. The process is dangerous. We might not survive it." Their words sent a hush through the chamber, momentarily quieting even the raging storm outside. High Counselor Thex stepped forward, his expression grave. "Are you certain this is the only way?" Before Samuel could respond, the vortex pulsed with renewed intensity. The ground beneath their feet began to crack and splinter, the entire structure of the communication hub groaning under the strain. "We don't have a choice," Tara said, her voice firm despite the fear evident in her eyes. "If we don't act now, everything will be destroyed." High Counselor Thex nodded solemnly. "Then do what you must. All forces, support their efforts. The fate of Ithor depends on it." Even Counselor Zorn and Colonel Hawthorne, recognizing the gravity of the situation, reluctantly stood down. The transformed Ithorians, sensing the shift in energy, formed a circle around Samuel and Tara, ready to channel their combined power. As Samuel and Tara approached the pulsing crystal at the heart of the chamber, they felt the weight of countless lives resting on their shoulders. The crystal's glow intensified as they drew near, responding to their presence. With a shared breath, they reached out and placed their hands on the ancient structure. The moment their skin made contact, a surge of energy unlike anything they had experienced before coursed through their bodies. Samuel gasped as he felt his physical form begin to blur and shimmer, the boundaries between flesh and energy becoming indistinct. Beside him, Tara's body fluctuated, her Ithorian features melding with the swirling light of the vortex. Through their shared consciousness, they began the intricate process of activating the planetary defense system. The transformed Ithorians around them acted as conduits, channeling the immense energies required for the task. Outside, the chaotic vortex began to shift and coalesce. The swirling lights gradually reshaped themselves, forming a massive translucent dome that started to envelop the entire planet. From space, it appeared as if Ithor was being encased in a shimmering, iridescent bubble. But as the activation process continued, the strain on Samuel and Tara's bodies intensified. Their physical forms flickered and wavered, threatening to dissipate entirely under the immense pressure. The fate of Ithor, and perhaps the galaxy itself, now hung in the balance as they raced to complete the activation before their bodies gave out. High Counselor Thex, Ambassador Steele, and even the wary Captain Zera watched in awe as the two beings before them, neither fully human nor Ithorian, fought to save a world. The transformed Ithorians channeled ever-increasing amounts of energy, their bodies glowing like miniature suns. As the dome continued to form around Ithor, Samuel and Tara pushed themselves to their absolute limits, their consciousness expanding to encompass the entire planet. They could feel the ancient defense system coming to life, responding to their combined human and Ithorian biosignatures. But would it be enough? Could they complete the activation before their physical forms were torn apart by the colossal energies they were channeling? The answer remained uncertain as the fate of Ithor balanced on a knife's edge, with the transformed couple at the very center of the maelstrom. Cosmic vortex of energy and consciousness. The strain on their bodies intensified as Samuel and Tara pushed themselves to the brink of their physical limits. Their forms began to blur and merge with the swirling energy field surrounding them, their individual features becoming indistinct as they channeled the immense power of the ancient Ithorian technology. The transformed Ithorians, linked through their shared abilities, formed a living network around the couple. Their bioluminescent patterns pulsed in synchronization, channeling the colossal energies being manipulated. The air crackled with raw power, sending shivers down the spines of all who witnessed the extraordinary scene. High Counselor Thex, his face etched with concern, surveyed the increasingly unstable situation. With a heavy heart, he made a difficult decision. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel to a safe distance," he commanded, his voice carrying over the din of the swirling energies. "We cannot risk any more lives than necessary." As the chamber began to clear, Thex turned to Dr. Elena Skora and Dr. Kira, who had been monitoring the situation with growing alarm. "We need your expertise now more than ever," he said urgently. "Find a way to support Samuel and Tara without putting their lives at further risk." The two scientists nodded grimly and quickly set to work, establishing a makeshift laboratory at the edge of the energy field. They combined human and Ithorian technology in a desperate attempt to monitor the couple's vital signs and the stability of the defense system. Outside the communication hub, chaos reigned. The massive energy dome continued to form around Ithor, its ethereal light visible even from space. But as the defense system activated, it began to interfere with the planet's delicate ecosystems. The bioluminescent flora, already altered by the transformative energies, started to spread at an alarming rate. Vast swathes of jungle were overtaken by the rapidly evolving plant life, their tendrils reaching towards the sky as if drawn to the energy dome above. The Ithorian government, faced with this unprecedented threat to their carefully balanced world, initiated emergency protocols to protect their cities and agricultural centers from the encroaching transformed vegetation. Amidst the pandemonium, Zera, the opportunistic Traxian merchant captain, saw a chance for profit. She discreetly dispatched her crew, instructing them to collect samples of the transformed flora and any loose fragments of the ancient technology they could find. "Be quick and be quiet," she hissed to her first mate. "This could set us up for life if we play our cards right." However, Zera's actions did not go unnoticed. Ambassador Steele, his diplomatic instincts on high alert, caught a glimpse of the Traxian crew's furtive movements. Without hesitation, he approached a nearby Ithorian security officer. "I believe Captain Zera and her crew are attempting to remove sensitive materials from the site," he reported, his voice low but urgent. "I strongly recommend you investigate immediately." As the Ithorian authorities moved to intercept Zera's team, a new complication arose. The energy dome surrounding Ithor had begun to attract attention from beyond the planet's atmosphere. Several alien vessels, drawn by the unprecedented energy readings, approached the transforming world. Colonel Hawthorne, watching the situation unfold from the military command center, gritted his teeth in frustration. He knew that allowing unknown entities near Ithor in its vulnerable state could spell disaster. "Contact the Ithorian military," he barked to his communications officer. "We need to establish a defensive perimeter around the planet immediately. No unauthorized access, no exceptions." Back at the crystal structure, Samuel and Tara's merged form began to destabilize. Their consciousness, now inextricably linked with the ancient technology, accessed long-forgotten knowledge about the true purpose of the defense system. Through the haze of overwhelming sensory input, they glimpsed a terrifying truth. A cosmic threat of unimaginable power was approaching, one that could potentially eradicate all life in the galaxy if left unchecked. This revelation sent shockwaves through the network of transformed Ithorians. The surge of power threatened to overwhelm the still-forming defense system, causing the energy dome to flicker and distort. Gravitational anomalies rippled across the planet's surface, sending massive chunks of land floating into the air, while other areas experienced crushing gravitational pulls. Dr. Skora and Dr. Kira, their eyes glued to the readouts from their hastily assembled instruments, exchanged looks of dawning comprehension and horror. "The defense system," Dr. Skora breathed, her voice barely audible over the cacophony of energy discharges. "It's not just a shield. It's trying to create a time dilation field around the entire planet." Dr. Kira nodded, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. "If successful, it would allow Ithor to experience time at an accelerated rate compared to the rest of the galaxy. We could prepare for the coming threat in a fraction of the time it would take to arrive. But the process is highly unstable," Dr. Skora added, her face pale. "If we can't control it, it could tear the planet apart." As if in response to their grim assessment, the crystal structure at the heart of the chamber began to crack under the immense pressure. Fragments of the ancient technology shot out in all directions, embedding themselves in the surrounding landscape and accelerating the spread of the transformation. The situation teetered on the brink of catastrophe. The fate of Ithor, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now rested in the hands of two beings who were no longer fully human nor Ithorian, but something entirely new. As Samuel and Tara's merged consciousness grappled with the weight of their newfound knowledge and power, the transformed world around them held its breath, waiting to see what would emerge from the heart of the storm. Cosmic vortex of energy and consciousness. In that moment of crisis, Samuel and Tara's merged consciousness made a pivotal decision. They initiated the planet-wide transformation process, sending a pulse of energy surging through the network of transformed Ithorians. The pulse expanded outward in a shimmering wave of bioluminescent energy, enveloping the entire planet. As it swept across Ithor's surface, millions of Ithorians experienced a sudden, simultaneous change in their physiology. Their bodies tingled and pulsed with newfound power as they developed abilities similar to Tara's. The mass transformation triggered a planet-wide surge of bioelectric energy. Power grids across Ithor overloaded, plunging cities into darkness. Communication systems crackled and died, severing connections between communities. As the transformed Ithorians came to terms with their new abilities, they instinctively connected to the planetary defense system. The collective link stabilized the energy dome surrounding Ithor, preventing its collapse and averting immediate catastrophe. Slowly, the floating land masses that had been torn from the ground began to descend. They settled back into place with a series of thunderous impacts, sending tremors rippling across the planet's surface. High Counselor Thex, watching from the command center, let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "By the mother jungle," he whispered, his eyes wide with awe and trepidation. But the transformation was not without its consequences. A significant portion of Ithor's population, particularly those who were not in direct contact with the energy wave, remained unchanged. As the dust settled, a clear divide emerged in Ithorian society between the transformed and non-transformed individuals. The sudden influx of energy from millions of newly transformed Ithorians overwhelmed the ancient crystal structure at the heart of the complex. With a deafening crack, it began to fragment. Shards of crystal technology shot out in all directions, embedding themselves in the ground and scattering across the planet's surface. Where the fragments landed, localized zones of intense energy formed. The surrounding environment warped and shifted, creating pockets of accelerated growth and mutation. As the immediate danger subsided, the implications of the planet-wide transformation became apparent. High Counselor Thex, his face etched with concern, turned to his advisors. "Establish emergency response teams immediately," he ordered. "We need to assist those struggling with their new abilities and contain any uncontrolled manifestations of power." Ambassador Steele, recognizing the potential interstellar ramifications of the event, rushed to the nearest functioning communication array. With trembling hands, he established a link to Earth's government. "This is Ambassador Steele," he said, his voice urgent. "We need a full diplomatic delegation and scientific team on Ithor immediately. The situation here has..." evolved beyond our wildest expectations. As Steele's message was relayed across the vast expanse of space, Earth government sprang into action. A state of emergency was declared, and the most advanced starships in the fleet were mobilized for an urgent mission to Ithor. Meanwhile, Zera, the opportunistic Traxian merchant captain, saw the chaos as a golden opportunity. She and her crew moved swiftly through the transformed landscape, covertly collecting samples of altered flora and fauna, as well as fragments of the scattered crystal technology. "Careful with those samples," Zera hissed to her first mate as they stuffed a glowing plant into a containment unit. "They're worth more than this entire planet now." But their actions did not go unnoticed. The newly enhanced sensory abilities of the transformed Ithorians made it difficult for Zera's team to operate in secrecy. As they worked, they failed to notice the group of Ithorians approaching from behind, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Dr. Elena Skora and Dr. Kira huddled over their hastily assembled equipment, analyzing data from the transformation. Their faces grew pale as the implications became clear. "The changes are permanent," Dr. Skora murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "And the new abilities, they're encoded in Ithorian DNA now." Dr. Kira's tentacles twitched nervously. "This will change everything. Ithorian society, their place in the galactic community, nothing will ever be the same." As scientists and government officials grappled with the aftermath of the transformation, Samuel and Tara's merged form began to separate. The process was agonizing, their bodies and minds struggling to disentangle after such an intense union. Slowly, painfully, they regained their individual consciousness. But as they did, they realized their connection had fundamentally changed. An empathic link now bound them together, allowing them to sense each other's emotions and thoughts across vast distances. Their separation coincided with a sudden fluctuation in the planetary defense system. The energy dome surrounding Ithor began to pulse rhythmically, emitting powerful bursts of radiation into space. As the pulses radiated outward, they attracted the attention of distant alien civilizations. Across the galaxy, sensors lit up, and curious eyes turned towards Ithor. The fragmented crystal technology scattered across Ithor's surface began to exhibit unexpected properties. Some pieces started to grow, forming new crystalline structures that interfaced with the planet's geology. Others bonded with local flora and fauna, creating hybrid life forms with extraordinary abilities. In a remote jungle clearing, a massive crystal shard pulsed with energy. The surrounding vegetation twisted and warped, forming into bizarre new shapes. A creature, part plant and part animal, emerged from the undergrowth, its body glowing with an inner light. As the first Earth vessels approached Ithor, they encountered the pulsating energy dome. Captain Zera Chen of the UESS Horizon frowned as her ship's sensors failed to penetrate the barrier. "All attempts to breach the dome have failed, Captain," her science officer reported. "We're holding position just outside Ithorian space." Chen's teeth gritted. "Send a message to Earth Command. We can't reach the planet. Request further instructions." On the planet's surface, Samuel and Tara slowly regained their strength. As they looked out over the transformed world they had inadvertently created, the weight of their actions settled heavily upon them. "What have we done?" Tara whispered, her voice trembling. Samuel squeezed her hand, their empathic link pulsing with a mixture of awe and trepidation. "I don't know," he replied, "but whatever comes next, we'll face it together." As they stood there, the transformed world of Ithor continued to evolve around them. The future they had set in motion was only beginning to unfold, with consequences that would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. The transformation of Ithor had set in motion a chain of events that would reshape not only their world, but potentially the entire galaxy. As Samuel and Tara stood together, their bodies still tingling from the intense merging experience, they felt a sudden surge of emotion that wasn't entirely their own. Their eyes met, a look of surprise and wonder passing between them. "Did you feel that?" Tara whispered, her voice barely audible over the ambient hum of energy that permeated the air. Samuel nodded, his brow furrowed in concentration. "It's like I can sense your thoughts, Your feelings, they're as clear as my own. Their newfound empathic link pulsed with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. As they explored this connection, the world around them continued to change at a rapid pace. In the nearby city of Tafanda Bay, the effects of the transformation were becoming increasingly apparent. A group of newly transformed Ithorians gathered in the central plaza, their bodies glowing with an otherworldly light. One of them, overwhelmed by his newfound abilities, accidentally discharged a burst of bioelectric energy that shattered the windows of a nearby building. Panic spread through the crowd as non-transformed Ithorians fled the scene. The incident was just one of many occurring across the planet as the transformed population struggled to control their new powers. High Counselor Thex watched the chaos unfold from the command center, his face a mask of concern. He turned to his advisors, his voice heavy with the weight of responsibility. "We need to act quickly to prevent further unrest," he said. "Counselor Zorn, I want you to lead a task force to address this growing divide between our people." Zorn, who had been quietly observing the situation, stepped forward. His earlier transgressions burdened immensely on his conscience, and he saw this as an opportunity for redemption. "High Counselor, I propose we establish safe zones across the planet," Zorn said, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. "Areas where transformed and non-transformed Ithorians can coexist and learn from each other. It may help ease tensions and promote understanding." Thex nodded, his eyes narrowing in thought. "Make it happen, Counselor. We need solutions, and we need them now." As the Ithorian government scrambled to maintain order, the scattered fragments of crystal technology continued to cause havoc across the planet. In the lush jungles outside Tafanda Bay, a massive shard of crystal had taken root, fusing with the surrounding vegetation. The result was a colossal crystal tree hybrid that pulsed with an eerie internal light. Dr. Elena Scora and Dr. Kira observed the phenomenon from a hastily constructed research outpost. Their equipment hummed and beeped as it analyzed the strange entity. "The rate of growth is astronomical," Dr. Scora muttered, her eyes fixed on the readouts. "If this continues unchecked, it could overtake entire ecosystems in a matter of days." Dr. Kira's tentacles twitched in agreement. "And it's not just the flora. Look at this," he said, pulling up a holographic display. The image showed a creature that was part Ithorian bantha, part crystalline construct. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural intelligence as it rampaged through a rural settlement. "The crystal fragments are bonding with fauna as well," Dr. Kira explained, creating hybrid creatures with enhanced strength and unpredictable behavior. As they pored over the data, a realization struck Dr. Scora. She ran a series of quick calculations, her face paling as the results came in. "Kira," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "the transformation, it's not limited to Ithorians. According to these readings, prolonged exposure to transformed individuals or crystal fragments could potentially affect other species, including humans." The implications of this discovery hung heavy in the air between them. The transformation of Ithor was no longer just a planetary crisis. It had the potential to spread beyond their world. Meanwhile, in orbit around Ithor, Ambassador Steele paced the deck of a hastily established base on one of the planet's moons. The energy dome surrounding Ithor continued to pulse, preventing any communication or access to the surface. Steele's face was drawn with worry as he addressed the holographic projections of Earth's military and scientific leaders. "We've been unable to penetrate the dome or establish contact with our people on the surface," he reported. "The Ithorian government is being less than forthcoming with information. We need to consider our options carefully." As the diplomats debated their next move, a small ship slipped away from Ithor's spaceport, its hold filled with smuggled crystal fragments and biological samples. Captain Zera, the opportunistic Traxian merchant, allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction as her vessel cleared the planet's atmosphere. Her victory was short-lived, however. As they approached the edge of the Ithorian system, alarms blared throughout the ship. Zera's first mate rushed to the bridge, his scales pale with fear. "Captain, we've got a problem," he hissed. "One of the Earth vessels has detected us. They're demanding we heave to for inspection." Zera's mind raced, considering her options. The cargo in her hold was worth a fortune, but only if she could get it to her buyers. With a sly grin, she began inputting a series of commands into the ship's navigation system. "Strap in," she ordered her crew. "We're about to show these humans why Traxians are the best pilots in the galaxy." Back on the surface of Ithor, Samuel and Tara found themselves drawn to the chaos unfolding around them. Their empathic link thrummed with the fear and confusion emanating from both transformed and non-transformed Ithorians. "We have to do something," Tara said, her voice filled with willpower. "We caused this. We need to help fix it." Samuel nodded, squeezing her hand. "Agreed. But where do we start?" As if in answer to their question, a transmission came through on their communicators. It was High Counselor Thex, his voice urgent. "Samuel, Tara, we need your help," he said. "A massive crystal tree hybrid has developed in the Tafanda Bay jungle. It's exhibiting signs of rudimentary intelligence and controlling nearby plant life. We need you to lead a team to contain it." The couple exchanged a look, their empathic link pulsing with a mixture of anticipation and drive. They knew that this mission could be the key to understanding and controlling the transformation that had swept across their world. As they prepared to depart, neither Samuel nor Tara could shake the feeling that they were standing on the precipice of something far greater than they had ever imagined. The fate of Ithor, and perhaps the galaxy, hung in the balance, and they were at the center of it all. As the first rays of dawn broke over the transformed landscape of Ithor, Samuel and Tara stood hand in hand, their empathic link pulsing with shared purpose. The weight of their responsibility settled upon them, and they knew they had to act quickly to address the chaos unfolding across the planet. "We can't let this spread beyond Ithor," Tara said, her voice firm. "The galaxy isn't ready for such a drastic change." Samuel nodded, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Agreed. We need to focus on preparing our world for whatever's coming. The crystals, the transformation, it all has to be contained and controlled here." With renewed dedication, they set out to gather a team of transformed Ithorians. Word spread quickly, and soon a diverse group assembled, each individual glowing with newfound abilities. Among them was Zorn, the former counselor seeking redemption, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. "Our first priority," Samuel addressed the group, "is to harness the crystal technology scattered across Ithor. We need to create a network of nodes to amplify our planetary defense system." Tara unfolded a holographic map of Ithor, highlighting key geological formations. "These are the locations where we need to place the crystal fragments. The energy from these nodes will form a web, strengthening our defenses against any external threat." As the team dispersed to begin their work, Dr. Elena Scora and Dr. Marcus Wong huddled over their equipment in a makeshift laboratory. Sweat beaded on Dr. Wong's forehead as he analyzed the latest data. "Elena, look at this," he said, gesturing to a display. "The transformation isn't just limited to Ithorians. Prolonged physical contact with transformed individuals can trigger partial transformation in any species." Dr. Scora's eyes widened. "We need to implement strict protocols immediately. The implications of this spreading off world—" Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent transmission from High Counselor Thex. His holographic image flickered to life, his expression grave. "I'm declaring a state of emergency," Thex announced. "We're establishing a joint task force of transformed and non-transformed Ithorians to manage this crisis. Dr. Scora, Dr. Wong, your expertise will be crucial in this effort." As the scientists hurried to join the task force, Samuel and Tara led their team to the first crystal node location. The jungle had been overtaken by crystal growths, creating a surreal landscape of glittering vegetation and pulsing energy. Tara approached a large crystal fragment, her hand outstretched. As her fingers made contact, she gasped, "Samuel, I can feel it. It's alive." Samuel joined her, their empathic link intensifying as they both connected with the crystal. Through their combined abilities, they began to guide the crystal's growth, shaping it into a towering spire that hummed with power. As the node took form, a wave of energy pulsed outward, interfacing with the planetary defense system. The energy dome surrounding Ithor flickered and strengthened, its protective barrier becoming more robust. Meanwhile, in orbit around Ithor, Ambassador Steele paced the deck of the Earth vessel, his face creased with worry. He turned to address the holographic projections of Earth's leadership. "We need to find a way to study this transformation," Steele argued. "I propose a controlled exchange program. We send a small team of our scientists to Ithor, and in return, we grant Ithorian representatives access to our technology." The proposal was met with a mix of enthusiasm and skepticism. As the debate raged, Steele's attention was drawn to a commotion on the bridge. "Sir," a young officer reported, "we've detected a small ship leaving Ithorian space at high speed. It's not responding to hails." Steele's eyes narrowed. "Zera," he muttered. "She must have managed to smuggle out some samples. Alert all nearby Earth vessels. We can't let those materials fall into the wrong hands." Back on the surface of Ithor, Samuel and Tara's team worked tirelessly to establish more crystal nodes. With each new connection, they felt the growing presence of a planet-wide crystalline consciousness emerging. As night fell, they found themselves at the heart of a transformed crystal node, its energy pulsing in sync with their own. Suddenly, a wave of information flooded their minds through their empathic link. Samuel gasped, staggering under the weight of the revelation. "Tara, did you feel that? The threat? It's closer than we thought. We don't have much time." Tara squeezed his hand, her face set with grit. "Then we'd better work faster. Ithor's fate, maybe the fate of the entire galaxy, depends on us." As they prepared to continue their work through the night, the crystal forest in the distance pulsed with an eerie light. The intelligent crystal tree they had encountered earlier seemed to be growing, its influence spreading rapidly across the landscape. Samuel and Tara exchanged a worried glance, knowing that this was yet another challenge they would have to face in their race against time. The transformed world of Ithor hummed with energy and possibility, but also with danger and uncertainty. As Samuel and Tara led their team forward, they knew that every decision, every action, would shape the future not just of their planet, but potentially of the entire galaxy. As the crystal forest pulsed with an otherworldly glow, Samuel and Tara knew they had to act quickly to harness its power and unite their fractured world. They established a central command center within the largest crystal node network, its towering spires reaching towards the star-studded sky. As they entered the structure, the crystals hummed in response to their presence, recognizing the unique bond between the two transformed Ithorians. Samuel placed his hand on a nearby crystal surface, closing his eyes as he focused his empathic abilities. "Tara, join me. I think I can feel something, a consciousness." Tara linked her hand with his, and together they reached out with their minds. Suddenly they were awash in a sea of information, the emerging crystalline consciousness of Ithor flooding their senses. "It's incredible," Tara gasped, her eyes wide with wonder. "We can see everything happening on the planet." Samuel nodded, his face set with concentration. "And we can use this to coordinate our defenses. We need to call a meeting with High Counselor Thex immediately." Within hours, the Ithorian government convened in an emergency session. High Counselor Thex stood before the assembled leaders, his tentacles twitching with nervous energy. "We face a crisis unlike any in our history," Thex began, "but we also have an opportunity. I propose we establish transformation centers across Ithor, where non-transformed individuals can voluntarily undergo a controlled version of the process." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of voices, some in support, others vehemently opposed. Dr. Elena Skora stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I understand your concern," she said, addressing the room, "but Dr. Wong and I have made significant progress in our research. We believe we can ensure the safety and stability of these transformations." As the debate raged on, Samuel and Tara worked tirelessly to expand the Crystal Node network. With each new connection, they felt the planetary defense system growing stronger, more responsive to their will. Weeks passed, and the transformation centers began operations. The results were both promising and concerning. Many non-transformed Ithorians emerged from the process with abilities similar to those of Samuel and Tara. But others developed unique powers that set them apart. In one of the centers, a young Ithorian named Lara stumbled out of the transformation chamber, her body glowing with an intense, pulsating light. As the medical team rushed to assist her, she raised her hands and a burst of pure energy erupted from her palms, leaving scorch marks on the far wall. "What's happening to me?" Lara cried, her voice trembling with fear and excitement. Dr. Wong approached her cautiously, his scanner humming as he took readings. "Fascinating," he muttered. "It seems the transformation process has manifested differently in you. Your body appears to be capable of generating and manipulating energy directly." As more Ithorians with diverse abilities emerged from the transformation centers, Samuel and Tara faced the challenge of integrating these new powers into their defensive strategy. They established training programs, working to help individuals control and harness their unique abilities. Meanwhile, the intelligent crystal forest continued its relentless expansion. Samuel and Tara, recognizing both the potential and the threat it posed, decided to attempt communication. They journeyed to the heart of the forest, where the crystal formations were at their most dense and complex. As they approached, tendrils of crystalline energy reached out towards them, probing, questioning. Tara stepped forward, her hand outstretched. "We come seeking an alliance," she said, her voice echoing through the crystal-laden air. "Together we can protect Ithor from the dangers that threaten us all." For a moment there was silence. Then a surge of energy pulsed through the forest, and a voice that was not a voice resonated in their minds. "We are one," the forest communicated. "Your purpose aligns with ours. We will shield. We will grow. We will protect." With the forest's agreement secured, Samuel and Tara returned to the Central Command Center, their minds racing with the possibilities this new alliance presented. As they entered, they found Colonel Hawthorne waiting for them, his face set with dedication. "I have made a decision," Hawthorne announced. "I want to undergo the transformation process." Samuel and Tara exchanged a surprised glance. "Are you sure?" Samuel asked. "This isn't something to be taken lightly." Hawthorne nodded firmly. "I need to understand what's happening here, really understand it, and I can't do that from the outside." As Hawthorne prepared for his transformation, tension among his team grew. Some saw his decision as a necessary step in their mission, while others viewed it as a betrayal of their purpose on Ithor. Lieutenant Chen confronted Hawthorne just before he entered the transformation chamber. "Sir, with all due respect, this is a mistake. We're here to observe and report, not to become part of the phenomenon we're studying." Hawthorne placed a hand on Chen's shoulder. "I understand your concerns, Lieutenant, but sometimes to truly understand something, you have to experience it firsthand. I'm not abandoning our mission. I'm taking it to the next level." As Hawthorne disappeared into the chamber, alarms blared throughout the facility. Samuel rushed to the communications array, his face paling as he received an urgent transmission. "Tara," he called out, his voice tight with concern. "We've got a problem. The Galactic Council is sending a delegation. They're concerned about the potential spread of the transformation." Tara's mind raced as she considered the implications. "We need to prepare. If we can't convince them that we have this under control..." Her words were cut short as the crystal nodes throughout the command center pulsed with an urgent rhythm. Samuel and Tara both felt it, a warning, a premonition of danger approaching from the depths of space. As they stood there, hands clasped, the weight of their responsibility settling heavily upon them, they knew that the true test of Ithor's transformation was about to begin. The cosmic threat they had sensed was drawing near, and the fate of not just their world, but potentially the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Balance hung in the balance. As the first rays of dawn crept over the horizon, the pulsing rhythm of the crystal nodes intensified, their urgent beats reverberating through Samuel and Tara's empathic link. The couple exchanged a knowing glance, their faces etched with tenacity. "It's time," Samuel said, his voice steady despite the weight of responsibility pressing down on them. Tara nodded, squeezing his hand. "Let's gather the Crystal Guardians." Within minutes, the newly formed team of transformed Ithorians assembled in the command center. Each member's unique abilities had been honed over the past weeks, and now they stood ready to face the approaching threat. Samuel addressed the group, his voice carrying a quiet authority. "The cosmic entity we've sensed is nearly upon us. We must create a protective barrier in the stratosphere to shield Ithor. As one, the Crystal Guardians moved out, their bodies glowing with impossibly strong energy. They soared upward, leaving trails of sparkling light in their wake. Samuel and Tara led the formation, their intimate connection allowing them to synchronize their powers effortlessly. High above Ithor's surface, they began to weave a crystalline shield, their combined abilities creating a lattice of energy that spanned the planet. The couple's empathic bond amplified their strength, and soon a shimmering barrier enveloped the world. No sooner had the shield solidified than a massive translucent form appeared in the distance. It undulated through space, its serpentine body stretching for thousands of kilometers. The creature pulsed with stolen energy, its surface rippling with the life force of countless devastated worlds. "By the moons," Tara gasped, her eyes wide with awe and fear. "What is that thing?" Dr. Elena Scora's voice crackled over their communication devices. "We're calling it the Void Leviathan. Our readings indicate it's an energy-absorbing entity of immense proportions." As the Void Leviathan approached, it began to engulf Ithor's outer atmosphere. The Crystal Guardians felt the strain immediately, their shield buckling under the creature's immense power. Samuel and Tara's empathic link with the crystalline consciousness surged, providing them with a flood of tactical information. They quickly began coordinating their team's efforts, directing members to reinforce weak points in the shield. "Lara, focus your energy manipulation on the creature's tendrils," Samuel called out. "Kyle, Vex, maintain the integrity of the crystal node network on the surface." The battle raged on, with the Crystal Guardians pushing their abilities to the limit. On the planet's surface, the intelligent crystal forest expanded rapidly, covering nearly half of Ithor. It formed a secondary defense layer, absorbing and redirecting the energy attacks that penetrated the upper atmosphere. High Counselor Thex's holographic image appeared before Samuel and Tara. "The crystal forest's growth is forcing us to relocate several cities," he reported, his tentacles twitching with stress. "We're facing significant logistical challenges and unrest among the populace." Before they could respond, a new voice joined the communication channel. "This is Ambassador Zilthar of the Galactic Council. I'm witnessing the attack firsthand and have sent an urgent request for assistance to the Council. A galaxy-wide alert has been issued." As if in response to the ambassador's words, a fleet of Earth vessels suddenly dropped out of hyperspace near Ithor. Admiral Helena Vance's stern face appeared on the communication display. "This is Admiral Vance of Earth's Defensive Force," she announced. "We came prepared to assert Earth's interests, but it's clear the situation has changed. We offer our full support in defending Ithor against this cosmic threat." Samuel felt a surge of relief at the unexpected reinforcements. "Admiral, we appreciate your assistance. Please coordinate with Colonel Hawthorne on the surface for tactical deployment." On the ground, Colonel Hawthorne, his body now transformed and humming with crystal energy, led a group of newly empowered Ithorians. They focused on protecting vital infrastructure and managing the evacuation of non-transformed citizens to underground shelters. As the battle intensified, Dr. Scora's excited voice came through once again. "We've made a breakthrough. Dr. Wong and I have developed a crystal catalyst that can temporarily boost the powers of transformed individuals. We're setting up production facilities now." The news of the catalyst provided a spark of hope, but the Void Leviathan's assault only grew stronger. Its massive body now enveloped nearly a quarter of Ithor, and it began to drain energy directly from the planet's core. The surface shook with earthquakes, and volcanoes long dormant roared to life. Samuel and Tara, their bodies glowing with an intense light, made a daring decision. They merged their consciousness, reaching out to touch the mind of the Void Leviathan itself. The contact was overwhelming, flooding their senses with alien thoughts and insatiable hunger. They reeled back, gasping for breath. We saw inside it," Tara panted, her body trembling from the strain. "It's driven by an endless need to consume, but there might be a way to stop it." Before they could elaborate, a familiar ship dropped out of hyperspace nearby. Zera, the Traxian merchant captain, had returned to the Ithorian system. "Looks like you could use some help," Zera's cocky voice rang out over the communication channels. My ship's got some tricks that might come in handy against your big, hungry friend out there. As night fell once again, Samuel and Tara found themselves facing an impossible choice. The intelligent crystal forest had communicated a plan through their empathic link, a risky gambit that could potentially repel the void leviathan, but the cost would be enormous. A planet-wide crystal network, Samuel explained to the assembled leaders, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision before them. It could generate enough power to drive the creature away, but it would require some of us to fuse with the crystal structures permanently. Tara squeezed his hand, her eyes meeting his. We'd essentially become living conduits for the planet's energy. We might lose our individual identities in the process. As the void leviathan prepared for its final, devastating assault, Samuel and Tara stood at the precipice of a decision that would alter the fate of Ithor forever. The crystal forest pulsed with urgent energy, awaiting their choice. Response. As the void leviathan prepared for its final, devastating assault, Samuel and Tara stood at the precipice of a decision that would alter the fate of Ithor forever. The crystal forest pulsed with urgent energy, awaiting their choice. With a shared glance, they knew what had to be done. Samuel took a deep breath and spoke, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. We'll do it. We'll volunteer for the fusion process. Tara nodded, her eyes gleaming with dedication. Together. Their decision rippled through the ranks of the Crystal Guardians. One by one, others stepped forward, inspired by their leader's selflessness. A wave of volunteers formed, each ready to sacrifice their individual existence for the greater good. High Counselor Thex's holographic image flickered with concern. Are you certain? The risks aren't necessary, Samuel finished. We don't have time for debate. The void leviathan is upon us. As if to emphasize his point, the ground shook violently. The cosmic entity's tendrils pressed against the weakening shield, sending shock waves through Ithor's crust. Samuel and Tara moved swiftly to the nearest crystal node, their hands intertwined. As they approached, the crystalline structure pulsed with anticipation. Tendrils of energy reached out, enveloping the couple. The process began slowly at first. Crystal formations grew around their feet, anchoring them to the ground. Samuel winced as the first spikes of pain shot through his body. Beside him, Tara gasped, her grip on his hand tightening. Stay with me, Samuel whispered, his voice strained. Tara managed a smile through gritted teeth. Always. As their bodies merged with the crystal structures, their consciousness expanded. The pain faded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of connection. They could feel the entire crystal network spreading across Ithor, a vast web of energy and information. Their intimate bond intensified beyond anything they had experienced before. Thoughts, memories, and emotions flowed freely between them, their individual selves blurring at the edges. Across Ithor, the crystal forest surged into rapid growth. Crystal spires erupted from the ground, engulfing buildings and reshaping the landscape. The remaining non-transformed Ithorians scrambled for safety, guided by Colonel Hawthorne and his team, to specially designed shelters. Through their expanded awareness, Samuel and Tara coordinated the planet's defenses. They channeled energy from Ithor's core, feeding it into the crystal network. The planet's surface began to glow, a brilliant shield pulsating in rhythm with their combined heartbeats. High above, Admiral Helena Vance's voice crackled over the communication channels. Earth forces are in position. We're detecting a massive energy surge from the planet's surface. Samuel and Tara's fused consciousness reached out, connecting with the Earth vessels. Direct your fire at the Leviathan's central mass, they communicated in unison. We'll handle its tendrils. As the Earth fleet opened fire, Samuel and Tara focused the planet's energy. Beams of crystalline light shot from Ithor's surface, striking the void Leviathan's grasping tendrils. Where the beams hit, the creature's energy absorption reversed, its stolen power flowing back into Ithor. The Leviathan recoiled, its massive body undulating in what could only be described as pain. It redoubled its efforts, concentrating its attacks on the crystal nodes housing the fused consciousness of Samuel, Tara, and the other Crystal Guardians. Inside the crystal network, Samuel and Tara felt the strain. Their physical forms within the structure began to destabilize, threatening to dissolve completely. Dr. Elena Scora's voice cut through their shared consciousness, tinged with urgency. Samuel, Tara, your vital signs are critical. If this continues, you may lose your individual identities entirely. For a moment, fear gripped them both. The thought of losing themselves, of becoming nothing more than another part of the planet's crystalline network, was terrifying. But as quickly as the fear came, it passed, replaced by a sense of purpose. We knew the risks, they responded as one. We must hold. As the battle raged on, a new presence entered their expanded awareness. Admiral Zexler's fleet dropped out of hyperspace, a veritable armada of galactic council ships taking up defensive positions around Ithor. This is Admiral Zexler, a gruff voice announced. We stand ready to assist in Ithor's defense. With the addition of the Galactic Council's firepower, the tide of battle began to turn. The Void Leviathan's attacks grew less coordinated, its massive body writhing in space as it struggled against the combined assault. But even as victory seemed within reach, Samuel and Tara made a startling discovery. Through their enhanced perception, they detected a pattern in the Leviathan's energy signature. It wasn't random, it was controlled. There's something else out there, they communicated to the fleet commanders. The Leviathan isn't acting alone, it's being directed. Admiral Zexler's response was immediate. Understood. Dispatching scout ships to the system's outer reaches now. As the scouts raced to uncover the hidden threat, Samuel and Tara focused on maintaining Ithor's defenses. The strain on their fused consciousness grew with each passing moment. They could feel their individual selves slipping away, merging further into the crystal network. In a quiet corner of their shared mind, a spark of their former selves remained. Samuel's voice barely a whisper. Tara, I know, came her reply, equally faint. Me too. Together they poured everything they had into Ithor's defense, their love for each other and their world fueling the planet's resistance against the cosmic threat. As their consciousness expanded further, encompassing more of the crystal network, they held on to that small spark of individuality, a reminder of who they were and what they fought for. The battle for Ithor entered a new phase, with the defenders now fighting on two fronts, against the immediate threat of the Void Leviathan and the unseen force guiding it. Samuel and Tara, their bond tested to its limits, clung to their last shreds of individual identity as they continued to power Ithor's defenses, knowing that the fate of their planet and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. Balance hung in the balance. As their consciousness expanded further, Samuel and Tara felt their grasp on individuality slipping away, their essences merging deeper into the crystalline network. Suddenly, a sharp jolt coursed through their shared being. Dr. Elena Scora's voice cut through the haze of their expanding awareness. Initiating stabilization field now. Hold on, both of you. A surge of energy enveloped the central crystal node containing Samuel and Tara's essence. The modified crystal catalyst created a pulsing, iridescent bubble around their consciousness, its rhythmic thrum anchoring their sense of self. As the stabilizing field took effect, Samuel and Tara experienced a moment of startling clarity. Their merged consciousness remained intact, but their individual identities sharpened, becoming distinct once more. Tara, Samuel's thoughts rang out, crisp and clear. I'm here, she responded, her mental voice steady and strong. We're still us. Their connection deepened, transcending mere thought. Memories flowed between them. Samuel's childhood on Earth, Tara's first encounter with the crystal forest, their shared moments of joy and struggle on Ithor. Emotions intertwined, fear and drive braiding together into an unbreakable tenacity. With renewed focus, they turned their attention to Ithor's defenses. Through their link to the planet-wide network, they coordinated the efforts of the Crystal Guardians. Form up, they commanded in unison. Synchronize your attacks on the Leviathan's weak points. Across Ithor's surface, transformed Ithorians moved in perfect harmony. Beams of crystalline energy lanced upward, striking the Void Leviathan's undulating form with unprecedented precision. The cosmic entity recoiled, its tendrils writhing in the vacuum of space. Admiral Helena Vance's voice crackled over the comm channels. Now's our chance. Deploying the EMP weapon. A massive device unfolded from the largest Earth vessel, its dish-like emitter aimed at the retreating leviathan. Energy built up, crackling along its surface in arcs of blue-white lightning. Firing in 3, 2, 1. A blinding pulse erupted from the weapon, engulfing the void leviathan in a sphere of electromagnetic energy. For a heart-stopping moment, the creature's movements ceased entirely. Then, to the horror of the defenders, the leviathan's body began to swell. It absorbed the pulse, growing larger and more menacing with each passing second. Its tendrils, now crackling with stolen energy, lashed out with renewed vigor. "Evasive maneuvers," Admiral Vance shouted as the Earth fleet scattered. But it was too late. The Leviathan's counterattack struck with devastating force. Energy tendrils pierced Ithor's defenses, slamming into crystal nodes across the planet's surface. Samuel and Tara reeled from the impact, their connection to large portions of the defense grid abruptly severed. "We're losing control." Tara's thoughts echoed with alarm. As chaos erupted across Ithor, the intelligent crystal forest initiated an emergency response. New formations burst from the ground, their structures more complex and resilient than before. These evolving crystals absorbed the Leviathan's energy attacks, redirecting them harmlessly into the planet's crust. The rapid growth caused tremors to ripple across Ithor's surface. In the shelters, non-transformed Ithorians huddled in fear as the walls shook around them. Vox, their appointed leader, turned to Zera. "We need to strengthen these shields now, or we'll be crushed." The Traxian captain nodded, her fingers flying over her ship's control panel. "Rerouting power to the shelter's shield emitters. This should buy us some time." As the battle raged on, Colonel Hawthorne's scout ship approached the outskirts of the Ithorian system. His team of enhanced Ithorians scanned the void, searching for the source of the controlling intelligence. "Sir, I'm picking up an anomalous reading," one of the scouts reported. "It's coming from that asteroid field ahead." Hawthorne leaned forward, his crystalline eyes narrowing. "Take us in closer. Whatever's out there, we need to find it." Back on Ithor, Samuel and Tara's shared consciousness delved deeper into the crystal network, searching for a way to regain control of their defenses. As they probed the connections between nodes, they stumbled upon something unexpected, a faint signal emanating from Ithor's core. "Do you feel that?" Samuel's thoughts carried a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Tara's response was tinged with awe. "It's like a heartbeat, ancient but alive." They focused their attention on the mysterious signal, tracing its patterns and resonances. To their astonishment, they found that it shared characteristics with both the crystal forest and the void leviathan itself. "This technology," Tara mused, "it predates everything we know about Ithor's defenses." Samuel's thoughts raced. "And it seems to be connected to the leviathan somehow. Could this be the key to stopping it?" As they contemplated this new discovery, the battle above Ithor intensified. The void leviathan, empowered by the absorbed electromagnetic pulse, pressed its attack with renewed ferocity. Earth and galactic council ships darted through space, their weapons blazing against the cosmic threat. On the planet's surface, the evolving crystal structures continued to reshape Ithor's landscape. Transformed Ithorians adapted swiftly, using their enhanced abilities to navigate the changing terrain and maintain their defensive positions. Samuel and Tara, their bond stronger than ever, faced a crucial decision. The ancient technology hidden within Ithor's core offered a potential solution to the crisis, but unlocking its secrets would require them to temporarily divert their focus from the ongoing battle. As energy tendrils lashed down from the sky and new crystal spires erupted from the ground, Samuel and Tara steeled themselves for the challenges ahead. The fate of Ithor, and perhaps the entire galaxy, now hinged on unraveling the mysteries buried deep within their world's ancient past. Core. As Samuel and Tara contemplated the implications of this discovery, a surge of energy coursed through the crystal network, carrying with it vital information. "Incoming transmission from Colonel Hawthorne," they communicated to the fleet commanders. "His team has uncovered something in the asteroid field." The colonel's voice crackled through the communication channels, tinged with excitement and urgency. "We found a dormant alien structure hidden among the asteroids. It's emitting a signal that matches the one controlling the void leviathan." This revelation sent shockwaves through the combined forces defending Ithor. Admiral Helena Vance's voice cut through the chatter. "This could be the breakthrough we need. We must investigate further." As the fleet commanders discussed strategies to exploit this new information, Dr. Elena Skora approached the crystal node housing Samuel and Tara's fused consciousness. Her hands moved swiftly over a complex array of instruments, making minute adjustments. "I've developed a new crystal catalyst injection," she explained, her voice tight with concentration. "It should allow you to temporarily separate from the network while retaining your enhanced abilities. We need you on the ground for what comes next." Samuel and Tara felt a momentary surge of apprehension. The thought of disconnecting from the vast consciousness they now shared was daunting, but they understood the necessity. "We're ready," they communicated in unison. Dr. Skora activated the injection sequence. A cool sensation spread through the crystal structure, and Samuel and Tara felt their individual awareness sharpening. Slowly, carefully, they began to disentangle themselves from the planetary network. As their separate forms materialized outside the crystal node, they stumbled slightly, adjusting to the sensation of having physical bodies again. Samuel reached out, steadying Tara with a hand on her arm. The touch sent a jolt of electricity through them both, their enhanced senses magnifying the connection. "Are you all right?" Samuel asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. Tara nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of disorientation and wonder. "It's different, but I can still feel the network, just more distantly now." Dr. Skora approached them, running a scanner over their bodies. "Your vitals are stable, and you're maintaining a connection to the crystal network. How do you feel?" "Like we're in two places at once," Tara replied, flexing her fingers experimentally. Samuel nodded in agreement. "We can still sense the battle above, but it's like watching it through a filter." As they acclimated to their new state, a small group approached. Leading them was an Ithorian woman with sharp, intelligent eyes and a determined set to her jaw. "Samuel, Tara, this is Dr. Lara Vex," Dr. Skora introduced. "She's our foremost expert on Ithor's geological structure. She'll be essential for the expedition to the planet's core." Dr. Vex stepped forward, her gaze intense. "I've studied the energy readings from the core. If my calculations are correct, we're dealing with technology far beyond anything in our recorded history." Samuel and Tara exchanged a glance, their enhanced perception allowing them to communicate without words. They could sense the weight of responsibility settling on their shoulders. "We need to move quickly," Samuel said, turning to address the assembled team. "The void leviathan won't give us much time." As if in response to his words, the ground beneath their feet trembled. Through their connection to the crystal network, Samuel and Tara sensed the cosmic entity renewing its assault on Ithor's defenses. Dr. Vex led them to a hangar where several sleek, crystalline vehicles awaited. "These will take us to the planet's core," she explained, running a hand along the smooth surface of the nearest craft. "They're designed to withstand the extreme conditions we'll encounter." As the expedition team boarded the vehicles, Admiral Vance's voice came through their communication devices. "We'll do our best to keep the Leviathan occupied. Good luck down there." The hangar doors slid open, revealing a vast tunnel leading into the depths of Ithor. Samuel and Tara took their places in the lead vehicle, their hands intertwining almost unconsciously. With a low hum, the crystal-powered craft began to move, carrying them into the unknown heart of their world. As they descended, the tunnel walls changed, revealing layers of Ithor's history. Ancient crystal formations jutted out at odd angles, their structures more complex and alien than anything on the surface. "These crystals," Dr. Vex murmured, her eyes wide with wonder. "They're unlike anything I've ever seen. The complexity of their structures suggests an intelligence far beyond our current understanding." As they delved deeper, the temperature rose and the pressure increased. The vehicle's crystal shells pulsed with energy, adapting to the changing conditions. Suddenly, their lead craft shuddered to a halt. Before them, a massive cavern opened up, filled with an eerie, pulsating light. Floating in the vast space were dozens of crystalline beings, each the size of a small ship. By the stars, Dr. Vex breathed. These must be the original inhabitants of Ithor. The crystalline entities hung motionless in the cavern, neither alive nor dead, suspended in a state between existence and non-existence. As the expedition team watched in awe, a faint resonance began to build, emanating from the ancient beings. Samuel and Tara felt the vibration through their connection to the crystal network. "They're awakening," Tara said, her voice hushed with reverence and a hint of fear. The resonance grew stronger, reverberating through the cavern and up to the planet's surface. Through their link to the defense grid, Samuel and Tara sensed a surge of power coursing through Ithor's crystals. The planet's defenses, Samuel realized, they're getting stronger. But with the increased power came a price. The ground began to shake more violently, the seismic activity threatening to destabilize the cavern. "We need to keep moving," Dr. Vex urged, her fingers flying over the vehicle's controls. "The core chamber should be just beyond this cavern." As they navigated through the awakening crystalline beings, the vibrations intensified. The expedition team held on tightly as their vehicles weaved through the increasingly chaotic space. Finally, they emerged into a vast spherical chamber. At its center floated an enormous crystal structure, pulsing with energy that made the air itself seem alive. "The core," Dr. Vex whispered in awe. Samuel and Tara stepped out of their vehicle, drawn to the ancient artifact. As they approached, tendrils of energy reached out, as if recognizing them. "Are you ready?" Samuel asked, turning to Tara. She nodded, her eyes reflecting the pulsing light of the core. Together, they reached out, their hands touching the surface of the massive crystal. In an instant, their consciousness expanded, filled with fragments of memories and knowledge from a civilization long past. Images flashed through their minds. The creation of the void leviathan, its original purpose as a protector. The cataclysm that forced Ithor's ancient inhabitants into crystal stasis. Each revelation brought with it a deeper understanding of their world and the cosmic forces at play. As they absorbed this ancient knowledge, Samuel and Tara felt their bond deepen even further. Their thoughts, emotions, and even physical sensations merged, creating a connection more profound than anything they had experienced before. Suddenly, the onslaught of information ceased. Samuel and Tara opened their eyes, finding themselves back in the core chamber. The expedition team watched them expectantly, waiting for answers. Before they could speak, a tremor ran through the chamber. Through their enhanced perception, Samuel and Tara sensed a change in the battle above. The void leviathan had stopped its attack, its massive form now floating motionless in space. "It's confused," Tara said, her voice filled with wonder. "The awakening of the core has disrupted its programming." Samuel nodded, his mind racing with the implications of what they had learned. "We have a chance now, but we need to act quickly. We need to reactivate Ithor's ancient defenses and remind the Leviathan of its true purpose." As the expedition team gathered around them, eager to hear their plan, Samuel and Tara shared a look of persistence. They knew that the next few moments would determine not just the fate of Ithor, but potentially the entire galaxy. With the power of the core crystal at their disposal and the knowledge of an ancient civilization in their minds, they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. As Samuel and Tara prepared to face their greatest challenge, the core crystal pulsed with increasing intensity. The knowledge they had gained from the ancient civilization surged through their linked minds, revealing the true nature of the void Leviathan and the key to restoring balance to Ithor. "The Leviathan," Samuel began, his voice filled with awe. "It wasn't always a threat. It was meant to protect Ithor." Tara nodded, her eyes wide with understanding. "A cosmic guardian designed to absorb harmful radiation. But something went wrong." Dr. Lara Vex, who had been analyzing the data streaming from the core crystal, approached them with excitement. "I think I've found a way to reset the Leviathan's original programming. We need to create a massive crystal resonance chamber using your transformed DNA as a catalyst." The expedition team sprang into action, harvesting materials from the surrounding crystal formations. As they worked, the dormant crystalline beings in the cavern began to stir, their bodies pulsing with energy that matched the core's frequency. These beings, Dr. Vex observed, her voice hushed with wonder, they're responding to the core's activation. They could be the key to amplifying our resonance chamber's power. As the team raced against time, Zera's voice crackled through their communication devices. I've established a stable link between you and the surface. Admiral Vance has some news you need to hear. Admiral Helena Vance's voice came through, tense but controlled. We've just received word from the Galactic Council. An advanced alien race called the Zenthar has detected the energy emissions from Ithor's core. They're sending an envoy ship to investigate. Samuel and Tara exchanged a worried glance. The situation was growing more complex by the minute. There's more, Vance continued. Colonel Hawthorne's team has made a discovery in the asteroid field. The structure they found is an ancient Zenthar outpost. It seems they may have had a hand in creating the Void Leviathan. As the implications of this news sank in, Dr. Elena Scora's voice cut through the chatter. Samuel, Tara, I'm monitoring your vital signs. The core's energy is putting an immense strain on your bodies. Prolonged exposure could result in permanent fusion with the crystal structure. The couple faced each other, the weight of their decision hanging between them. To save Ithor and potentially the galaxy, they might have to sacrifice their individual identities. Whatever happens, Tara said, gripping Samuel's hand tightly, we're in this together. As the resonance chamber neared completion, the awakening crystalline beings began to move towards Samuel and Tara. Dr. Vex watched in fascination as the ancient entities surrounded the couple. They're drawn to your energy signature, she explained. I think they're trying to merge with you, to connect with the core's power through you. Samuel and Tara closed their eyes, focusing on their bond. They discovered that by synchronizing their thoughts and emotions, they could create a protective field around themselves. This allowed them to safely interact with the crystalline beings without being overwhelmed. Suddenly, the cavern shook violently. Through their connection to the crystal network, Samuel and Tara sensed the Void Leviathan's renewed assault on Ithor's defenses. It knows something's happening, Samuel said, his voice strained. We need to hurry. As the final preparations for the resonance chamber were made, Zera's voice came through once again. The Zenthar envoy has arrived. Admiral Vance is meeting with their representative now. In orbit above Ithor, Admiral Vance stood face-to-face with Zalthrin, the Zenthar envoy. The tall, ethereal being regarded her with ancient eyes. We have watched Ithor for millennia, Zalthrin said, his voice resonating oddly in the ship's conference room. We have waited for this moment when your people would rediscover your legacy. Back in the core chamber, the resonance device hummed to life. Waves of energy pulsed through Ithor's crystal network, radiating outward from the planet's core. Samuel and Tara, their minds linked to the core crystal, felt the energy surge through them. The Void Leviathan's attack suddenly ceased. Through their enhanced perception, they sensed confusion emanating from the cosmic entity as it entered a holding pattern around Ithor. The crystalline beings in the chamber began to arrange themselves in a complex geometric pattern around Samuel and Tara. As they did, a flood of knowledge and power surged through the couple's linked minds. We can reach it, Tara gasped, her eyes wide with realization. We can communicate with the Leviathan directly. Samuel nodded, feeling the same surge of understanding. We can remind it of its true purpose. As they prepared to make contact with the Void Leviathan, the strain on their bodies intensified. They could feel their individual consciousness beginning to blur, merging with the crystal network. Now or never, Samuel said, his voice barely audible over the hum of energy. Tara squeezed his hand in response. Together they reached out with their minds, extending their consciousness toward the confused entity orbiting their world. The core crystal pulsed with blinding intensity, enveloping the chamber in brilliant light. A column of energy shot upward through Ithor's crust, visible even from space. As it reached the Void Leviathan, Samuel and Tara felt their consciousness expand, touching the vast mind of the cosmic guardian. Images flashed through their shared awareness, the creation of the Leviathan, its years of faithful service, and the catastrophic event that had corrupted its purpose. They pushed through these memories, focusing on the entity's original directive. Remember, they communicated, their thoughts merging into a single voice. Remember who you are. Remember your purpose. The void leviathan's consciousness roiled with confusion and ancient pain. Samuel and Tara pushed harder, channeling the power of the core crystal in the awakened crystalline beings. They could feel their individual selves slipping away, becoming one with the cosmic forces surrounding them. As the energy peaked, the void leviathan's mind began to shift. Fragments of its original programming resurfaced, slowly overwriting the corruption that had driven it for so long. Samuel and Tara sensed the change, a glimmer of hope in the vastness of space. But their work was not yet complete. The Leviathan's consciousness was vast and complex, and restoring it fully would require all of their combined strength and will. As they delved deeper into the cosmic entity's mind, Samuel and Tara found themselves standing on the precipice of a monumental change, one that would determine the fate of Ithor and perhaps the entire galaxy. As they stood on this precipice, the core crystal's energy surged to unprecedented levels, engulfing the chamber in a blinding radiance that shot upward through Ithor's crust. Samuel and Tara found themselves at the epicenter of an extraordinary phenomenon. The energy amplified their connection to the crystal network, granting them unprecedented control over Ithor's ancient defenses. This enhanced link opened a direct channel of communication with the Void Leviathan, offering a chance to restore its original programming. The crystalline beings surrounding them began to resonate in harmony with the core's energy. Their synchronized vibrations created a powerful field that extended beyond the planet's atmosphere, enveloping both Ithor and the Void Leviathan. Samuel and Tara felt their combined consciousness projected towards the cosmic entity through this energy conduit. As they reached out, a rush of alien memories and emotions flooded their minds. Fragmented images flashed before them. The Leviathan's creation, its early symbiotic relationship with Ithor, and the catastrophic event that caused its malfunction. The sheer volume of information threatened to overwhelm them, pushing their bond to its limits. "Stay with me, Tara." Samuel's thoughts echoed through their shared consciousness. "We can't lose ourselves now." Tara's response came as a surge of persistence, reinforcing their connection. "I'm here. We're in this together, remember?" Dr. Lara Vex's voice cut through their merged awareness, tinged with urgency. "Samuel, Tara, the energy buildup in your bodies is reaching dangerous levels. You may not be able to withstand prolonged contact with the Leviathan." Despite the warning, the couple pressed on, driven by the knowledge that they were Ithor's last hope. On the planet's surface, the energy beam emanating from the core created a spectacular display visible across Ithor. The crystal forest responded to the surge, rapidly expanding and evolving new structures. Transformed and non-transformed Ithorians alike scrambled to adapt to their rapidly changing environment. In orbit, Admiral Helena Vance observed a shift in the Void Leviathan's behavior. Its erratic movements ceased as it oriented itself towards the energy beam. "All ships maintain positions," Vance commanded. "Do not engage unless absolutely necessary." The Zenthar envoy, Zalthrin, approached Vance on the bridge. "We can help," he said, his ethereal voice carrying a note of urgency. "Our technology can create a stabilizing field around Ithor to contain the energy fluctuations." Vance nodded, grateful for the unexpected assistance. "Do it." As the Zenthar ship deployed its stabilizing field, Samuel and Tara delved deeper into the Void Leviathan's consciousness. They uncovered a hidden fail-safe mechanism within its original programming, designed to reset the creature in case of malfunction. "This is it," Tara's thoughts resonated through their bond. "Our connection, combined with the core's power, we can trigger the reset." The strain on their bodies intensified. Crystal growths began to form on their skin, a side effect of their deep connection to Ithor's ancient technology. Dr. Elena Skora's voice crackled through the communication system. "Your transformation is accelerating. If you don't disconnect soon, it may become irreversible." Samuel and Tara's minds merged more completely than ever before, blurring the lines between their individual identities. This deep union allowed them to channel an unprecedented amount of energy, but also put them at risk of losing themselves entirely. The Void Leviathan, sensing the imminent reset, resisted. It unleashed a barrage of energy tendrils towards Ithor, attempting to disrupt the resonance chamber. The planet's defenses, bolstered by the expanded crystal forest and the Zinthar's stabilizing field, deflected the worst of the attack. However, the strain on the system intensified, pushing Ithor's crystal network to its limits. In a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, Samuel and Tara realized that resetting the Void Leviathan required more than just energy manipulation. They needed to reconnect the creature with its original purpose, reminding it of its symbiotic relationship with Ithor. Together, they delved into their shared memories of the planet's ancient past, searching for a way to reawaken the Void Leviathan's dormant protective instincts. They found fragments of a time when the creature and Ithor existed in harmony, each supporting the other's existence. As energy levels in the core chamber reached critical levels, Dr. Vex made a startling discovery. "The crystalline beings," she exclaimed, "they're not just amplifying the energy field. They're acting as a buffer, absorbing excess power that would otherwise overwhelm you." This protective function allowed Samuel and Tara to maintain their connection to the Void Leviathan longer than initially thought possible. With renewed drive, they focused all their energy, drawing upon the power of their bond, the core crystal, and the surrounding crystalline beings. "Now, Tara," Samuel's thoughts echoed through their shared consciousness. "Let's bring it home." As they initiated the reset sequence, a massive surge of energy erupted from the resonance chamber. The blinding flash engulfed both Ithor and the Void Leviathan, temporarily disrupting all communications and sensors across the Ithorian system. In that moment of intense brightness, Samuel and Tara felt their consciousness expand to encompass both the planet and the cosmic entity. They stood at the crossroads of past and future, their merged identity serving as a bridge between Ithor's ancient legacy and its uncertain destiny. The fate of Samuel, Tara, and the planet itself hung in the balance as the energy surge reached its peak. The true consequences of their actions remained to be seen, hidden behind a veil of blinding light and crackling energy that enveloped the entire Ithorian system. For several agonizing moments, the blinding radiance overwhelmed all senses, leaving those within its reach suspended in a sea of pure energy. As the light began to fade, a profound silence settled over Ithor and the surrounding space. Samuel and Tara, their consciousnesses still intertwined, felt the ebb and flow of power coursing through their transformed bodies. Slowly, awareness of their individual selves returned, bringing with it a cascade of new sensations. Their skin tingled with residual energy, a faint crystalline sheen visible where flesh had once been. As they disentangled themselves, Samuel gasped, his voice barely above a whisper. "Tara, are you all right?" She nodded, her eyes wide with wonder as she examined her altered form. "I'm different, but I feel connected to you, to Ithor, to everything." Dr. Lara Vex approached cautiously, her scientific curiosity warring with concern for her patients. She ran a series of quick scans, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Remarkable," she murmured. "Your DNA has undergone significant modification, but you're still fundamentally human. This hybrid state, it could be the key to everything." Samuel and Tara stood, their movements fluid and synchronized. Without speaking, they shared a moment of understanding, their enhanced empathic bond allowing them to communicate volumes in an instant. "The Leviathan," Samuel said suddenly, his gaze drawn upward. "What happened?" As if in response to his question, the chamber's crystal walls shifted, creating a window-like opening that offered a view of the sky above. The sight that greeted them was nothing short of awe-inspiring. The Void Leviathan, once a terrifying harbinger of destruction, now hovered peacefully above Ithor. Its massive form had undergone a stunning metamorphosis, with swirling patterns of bioluminescent energy pulsing across its surface in perfect harmony with the planet's crystal network. Gone were the aggressive tendrils that had threatened to tear Ithor apart. In their place, graceful, undulating appendages gently caressed the upper atmosphere, creating shimmering auroras where they touched. "It's beautiful," Tara breathed, instinctively reaching for Samuel's hand. As their fingers intertwined, they felt a surge of shared emotion. Relief, wonder, and a deep sense of connection to the transformed cosmic entity above them. Dr. Vex cleared her throat, drawing their attention back to their immediate surroundings. We should begin our ascent to the surface. There's no telling how much has changed up there. As the expedition team made their way through Ithor's subterranean structure, they discovered a world transformed. Vast crystal caverns stretched in every direction, their walls pulsing with vibrant energy. Tunnels honeycombed the planet's interior, forming a complex network that seemed to breathe with life. The crystalline beings they had encountered earlier now populated these new spaces, moving with purpose as they tended to the pulsing crystal growths. It's like the entire planet has become one living organism, Dr. Elena Skora observed, her voice filled with awe and a hint of trepidation. As they neared the surface, the team's communication devices crackled to life. Admiral Helena Vance's voice came through, tinged with a mix of relief and urgency. Expedition team, do you copy? We've been trying to reach you for hours. We copy, Admiral, Samuel responded. We're approaching the surface now. The situation here is, well, you'll have to see it to believe it. Understood, Vance replied. Be advised, we have a delegation waiting for you, including the Zinthar envoy. They're requesting an immediate meeting. As Samuel and Tara emerged from the planet's interior, they were greeted by a landscape that defied imagination. The crystal forest had expanded exponentially, covering nearly 70% of the visible terrain. Towering spires and graceful arches reached toward the sky, their crystalline surfaces refracting sunlight in dazzling displays of color. Within this transformed wilderness, new forms of life had already begun to emerge. Hybrid flora with both organic and crystalline characteristics dotted the landscape, while strange, shimmering creatures darted between the crystal formations. A small group awaited them at the entrance to the underground complex. High Counselor Thex stood at the forefront, flanked by Admiral Vance and an ethereal being that could only be the Zinthar envoy, Zalthrin. The aliens' eyes widened almost imperceptibly as they took in Samuel and Tara's transformed appearances. Welcome back, Thex said, his voice filled with emotion. Or perhaps I should say, welcome home. Before either of them could respond, Colonel Hawthorne pushed his way to the front of the group. His face was a mask of conflicting emotions, awe, concern, and a hint of fear. Samuel, Tara, he said, his voice gruff. I've just received word from Earth. They're requesting your immediate return for debriefing and medical examination. The colonel's words hung in the air, creating a palpable tension. Samuel and Tara exchanged a glance, their enhanced bond allowing them to share their apprehension without words. They could feel the pull of Ithor beneath their feet, a constant reminder of their new connection to this transformed world. High Counselor Thex stepped forward, his posture radiating authority. With all due respect, Colonel, Samuel and Tara's presence here is crucial for maintaining the stability of our planet. Surely Earth can send its representatives to Ithor instead. As the two leaders began to argue, Zalthrin moved closer to Samuel and Tara. The Zinthar's voice was melodic and otherworldly as it addressed them. Your actions have awakened something long dormant in our civilization. We have much to discuss. Samuel nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He looked to Tara, seeing his own mix of excitement and trepidation reflected in her eyes. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, as something more than human, yet still intrinsically tied to their original homeworld. As the argument between Thex and Hawthorne intensified, a low hum filled the air. The crystal structures around them began to pulse with energy, responding to the rising tensions. Samuel and Tara instinctively reached out with their newfound abilities, attempting to soothe the agitated crystal network. Their actions did not go unnoticed. Zalthrin's eyes widened with interest, while the others fell silent, watching in awe as the couple demonstrated their connection to Ithor's transformed ecosystem. It was clear that the fate of Samuel, Tara, and the planet itself hung in a delicate balance, one that would require careful navigation in the days to come. Come. As the tension between Colonel Hawthorne and High Counselor Thex threatened to escalate further, a familiar voice cut through the air. Gentlemen, please, Admiral Vance interjected, her tone firm but diplomatic. We have more pressing matters to discuss. The Admiral's intervention seemed to diffuse the immediate tension, but the underlying conflict remained palpable. Samuel and Tara exchanged glances, their enhanced empathic bond allowing them to sense the complex web of emotions surrounding them. Before anyone could speak further, a series of rapid beeps emanated from Colonel Hawthorne's communication device. He checked the message, his expression growing more serious with each passing second. "It seems Earth has made its decision," Hawthorne announced, looking up from the device. "They're dispatching a specialized scientific team to study the effects of the crystal technology on human physiology. The team will be led by Dr. Evelyn Reeves, one of our top xenobiologists." The news sent a ripple of unease through the group. Tara instinctively moved closer to Samuel, their partially crystallized hands intertwining. High Counselor Thex's face darkened. "And what of Ithor's sovereignty? Samuel and Tara are integral to our planet's new defense system. We cannot simply hand them over for Earth's experiments." "Perhaps a compromise can be reached," Zalthran suggested, its melodious voice drawing everyone's attention. "A facility that allows for the examinations while maintaining their connection to Ithor's crystal network." Admiral Vance nodded thoughtfully. "That could work. We could construct a hybrid medical crystal chamber, incorporating both Earth and Ithorian technology." As the leaders began to discuss the logistics of this plan, Samuel felt a strange tingling sensation spreading across his skin. He looked down to see his crystalline patches pulsing with increased luminescence. Tara gasped softly beside him, experiencing the same phenomenon. "Samuel, Tara, are you all right?" Dr. Vex asked, noticing their discomfort. Before they could respond, a small rock near their feet began to tremble. To everyone's astonishment, it slowly lifted off the ground, hovering a few inches in the air before gently settling back down. Did we just do that?" Tara whispered, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and excitement. Dr. Vex quickly scanned them with her handheld device. "Fascinating. It appears you've developed some form of bioelectric field manipulation. Your transformation is still ongoing, adapting to Ithor's changing environment." This new development added a sense of urgency to the situation. High Counselor Thex turned to Colonel Hawthorne, his voice resolute. "We will allow Dr. Reeves and her team to conduct their examinations, but only under strict Ithorian supervision and within the confines of the hybrid facility we discussed. Construction will begin immediately." As plans were set in motion for the arrival of the Earth scientific team, Samuel and Tara found themselves at the center of a growing interstellar controversy. The once peaceful crystal forest that surrounded them now seemed to pulse with an energy that mirrored their own internal turmoil. Suddenly, a low, resonant hum filled the air. Everyone looked up to see the void leviathan, its massive form now a breathtaking canvas of bioluminescent patterns, creating intricate designs in Ithor's upper atmosphere. "It's communicating," Samuel murmured, instinctively reaching out with his mind toward the cosmic entity. Tara joined him, their shared consciousness allowing them to perceive fragments of the Leviathan's message. Images flashed through their minds, distant stars, unknown celestial bodies, and a sense of impending danger. "There's something out there," Tara said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beyond our system. The Leviathan is trying to warn us." As the implications of this revelation began to sink in, the crystal structures around them pulsed with renewed intensity. The transformed landscape of Ithor seemed to respond to the heightened emotions of those gathered, creating a symphony of light and energy. In the midst of this, a small group approached from the direction of the nearby settlement. Leading them was a young woman with a determined expression, her eyes fixed on Samuel and Tara. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "My name is Lara. I need your help." As Lara stepped closer, Samuel and Tara noticed small crystalline growths on her skin, similar to their own but less developed. The young Ithorian held out her arms, revealing the extent of her spontaneous transformation. "It started a few days ago," Lara explained, her voice a mixture of fear and wonder. "I'm not the only one. There are others in the settlement." The revelation that Ithor's transformation might be affecting the entire population added yet another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. As Samuel and Tara contemplated this new challenge, They could feel the weight of responsibility settling more firmly on their shoulders. In the distance, the first rays of Ithor's sun began to peek over the horizon, bathing the crystal forest in a dazzling array of colors. The new day promised to bring with it a host of challenges and discoveries, as the transformed planet and its inhabitants continued to navigate their new reality. The arrival of Dr. Reeves and her team loomed on the horizon, along with the promise of rigorous examinations and potential revelations about their changing physiology. Yet even as they prepared for this, Samuel and Tara knew that their journey was nowhere near the end. The Void Leviathan's warning, the spontaneous transformations among the population, and their own evolving abilities all pointed to a future filled with both promise and peril. As the group began to disperse, each heading off to prepare for the challenges ahead, Samuel and Tara remained rooted in place, their gaze drawn to the shimmering expanse of the crystal forest. In that moment, they felt more connected than ever to Ithor and to each other, their shared destiny intertwined with the fate of this transformed world. As the first light of dawn broke over Ithor's transformed landscape, Samuel and Tara found themselves drawn back to the hybrid medical crystal chamber. The night had been restless, filled with shared visions of distant worlds undergoing similar metamorphoses. The pulsing energy of the planet's crystal network seemed to intensify with each passing hour, echoing the urgency of their newfound knowledge. Dr. Evelyn Reeves and her team from Earth were already bustling around the chamber when Samuel and Tara arrived. The air crackled with a mix of scientific excitement and nervous anticipation. "Good morning," Dr. Reeves greeted them, her eyes bright with curiosity. "We've accelerated our preparations in light of recent developments. Are you ready to begin?" Samuel nodded, squeezing Tara's hand. "As ready as we'll ever be." The couple stepped into the chamber, its walls a seamless blend of Earth technology and Ithorian crystal. As the door sealed behind them, they felt the familiar tingle of the planet's energy coursing through their bodies. Dr. Reeves' voice came through a speaker. "We're starting with a full-body scan. Please remain still." A soft hum filled the air as advanced imaging equipment activated. Samuel and Tara watched in fascination as holographic displays materialized around them, showing real-time renderings of their internal structures. "Extraordinary," Dr. Vex murmured, her voice joining Dr. Reeves over the comm system. "The crystalline structures have integrated themselves into your nervous systems with remarkable precision." As the scans progressed, Samuel felt a strange sensation building within him. Without warning, his skin began to emit pulses of bioluminescent light. Tara gasped as her body responded in kind, their patterns synchronizing in a mesmerizing dance. "Are you seeing this?" Dr. Reeves exclaimed. "The light patterns. They match the atmospheric communications of the Void Leviathan." Before anyone could respond, a commotion outside the chamber drew their attention. The door slid open, revealing a pale and shaking Lara supported by two medical staff. "Her transformation," Dr. Vex explained hurriedly. "It's accelerating rapidly. We need to include her in the study immediately." As Lara was brought into the chamber, Samuel and Tara watched in awe as crystal formations blossomed across her skin, mirroring their own transformation. "This changes everything," Dr. Reeves muttered, her fingers flying over a control panel. "We need to expand our parameters to account for this accelerated growth." Outside the chamber, the arrival of the Galactic Council's special committee added another layer of complexity to the unfolding situation. Ambassador Zrel, a tall, dignified figure with iridescent scales, strode purposefully towards the research facility. High Counselor Thex intercepted the ambassador, his face a mask of diplomatic calm. "Welcome to Ithor, Ambassador. I trust you'll find our accommodations satisfactory." Zrel nodded curtly. "Thank you, Counselor. We'll begin our assessment immediately. I'd like to start with interviews of both transformed and non-transformed Ithorians." As the two leaders walked away, deep in discussion, Colonel Hawthorne approached the chamber, his movements stiff and uncomfortable. The crystal patches on his skin had grown noticeably since the previous day. "Admiral," he called out to Helena Vance, who was overseeing the proceedings, I think it's spreading." Vance's eyes widened as she took in Hawthorne's appearance. Get him into a containment unit, she ordered nearby staff, and initiate mandatory health screenings for all Earth personnel. We need to understand the extent of this contamination. Inside the chamber, the examinations continued. Samuel, Tara, and Lara underwent a battery of tests, their bodies reacting in increasingly unexpected ways to various stimuli. As Dr. Reeves analyzed the data, her expression grew more perplexed. These readings suggest a level of symbiosis I've never seen before, she mused. It's as if your bodies are becoming conduits for some larger network. Suddenly, the chamber's crystal components pulsed with intense energy. Samuel, Tara, and Lara gasped in unison as a flood of information coursed through their minds. The leviathan, Samuel breathed, his eyes unfocused. It's trying to tell us something. Tara nodded, her voice distant. A warning. Something's coming. Something that affects all the transformed worlds. As the trio shared their vision with the scientists, the implications of their words sent shockwaves through the facility. Dr. Reeves immediately began correlating their account with the data from their examinations, while Dr. Vex rushed to inform High Counselor Thex. Outside, the crystal forest seemed to respond to the heightened emotions within the facility. The towering structures pulsed with increasing intensity, their light patterns mimicking the bioluminescent displays of Samuel, Tara, and Lara. As night fell once more, the exhausted trio emerged from the chamber, their bodies and minds still reeling from the day's events. They were led to a newly constructed crystal dwelling, its structure designed to accommodate their transformed physiology. Rest, Dr. Vex advised them. We'll continue our analysis in the morning. But as Samuel and Tara settled into their new home, a sense of unease lingered. The planet's energy thrummed through them, carrying with it the weight of unspoken challenges yet to come. Little did they know that their respite would be short-lived, as Ithor's transformation was about to enter a new, potentially volatile phase. As Samuel and Tara drifted into an uneasy sleep, the crystal walls of their new dwelling pulsed with an otherworldly glow, mirroring the rhythmic fluctuations of Ithor's transforming core. Their rest was short-lived. Before the first light of dawn touched the horizon, an urgent chime echoed through the room. Dr. Lara Vex's voice crackled over the comm system, her tone tinged with a mixture of excitement and concern. Samuel, Tara, we need you at the Central Research Facility immediately. There's been a significant development. The couple stumbled out of bed, their bodies still humming with the residual energy from yesterday's examinations. As they made their way through the crystal forest, they noticed the structures seemed more vibrant, more alive than ever before. Upon entering the facility, they were greeted by a flurry of activity. Scientists from Earth, Ithor, and Zinthar moved about with purpose, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of holographic displays. Dr. Vex waved them over to a central console. "Look at this," she said, gesturing to a three-dimensional projection of Ithor's interior. Pulsating lines of energy crisscrossed the planet's core, forming a complex, ever-shifting network. The energy readings from the core have intensified dramatically, Dr. Vex explained. It's triggering a new phase of transformation across the entire ecosystem. As if on cue, reports began flooding in from monitoring stations across the planet. The crystal forest was changing, its structures rearranging into intricate geometric patterns visible from orbit. "It's like a giant circuit board," Tara breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. High Counselor Thex strode into the room, his face a mask of calm commitment. "I've called an emergency session of the Crystal Integration Council," he announced. "We need to assess the risks and benefits of this new phase." As the council convened, Samuel and Tara found themselves drawn to a window overlooking the transformed landscape. The forest below shimmered with newfound energy, its crystalline structures pulsing in harmony with the planet's core. Suddenly, a tremor ran through the facility. Outside, the void leviathan appeared in the sky, its massive form now tracing complex, spiraling patterns around the planet. Trails of bioluminescent energy followed in its wake, forming a protective barrier around Ithor. "It's responding to the planet's transformation," Samuel realized. "It's protecting us." As they watched the cosmic entities dance, Samuel felt a surge of energy course through his body, Without thinking, he reached out with his mind towards a cluster of crystal spires outside the facility. To his amazement, the structures began to shift and rearrange, responding to his will. Tara gasped beside him, her own abilities amplifying in response to the planet's increased energy output. Together, they manipulated the crystal formations, creating elaborate designs that echoed the patterns forming across Ithor's surface. Dr. Evelyn Reeves, who had been observing nearby, approached with a look of astonishment. "Your abilities have grown exponentially," she said. "We need to run more tests to understand the full extent of your evolution." As they turned to follow Dr. Reeves, a commotion near the medical bay caught their attention. Lara, the young Ithorian whose transformation had accelerated rapidly, was being wheeled into a specially designed chamber. Her body was encased in a translucent crystal cocoon, pulsing with light that matched the rhythm of Ithor's core fluctuations. "She's entered some kind of chrysalis state," Dr. Vex explained, her voice filled with a mixture of concern and scientific curiosity. "We're monitoring her closely, but this could be a more advanced stage of the transformation process." The facility's intercoms crackled to life with Admiral Helena Vance's authoritative voice. "Attention all personnel. We're establishing a quarantine zone for individuals showing signs of crystal formation. Colonel Hawthorne, report to Medical Bay immediately." Samuel and Tara exchanged worried glances, remembering the crystal patches they had noticed on the colonel's skin. As they made their way to Dr. Reeves' examination room, they passed the conference area where Ambassador Zreltor and the Galactic Council's Special Committee were presenting their findings to a joint session of Ithorian and Earth representatives. The transformation of Ithor presents both unprecedented opportunities and potential risks. Zreltor's resonant voice carried through the hallway. "We recommend the formation of an interstellar task force to study and monitor transformed worlds across the galaxy." The gravity of the situation settled over Samuel and Tara as they entered the examination room. As Dr. Reeves began setting up her equipment, an alarm blared through the facility. "Unidentified object entering the system," a voice announced over the intercom. "All personnel to alert stations." Dr. Reeves paused, her hand hovering over a control panel. "We'll have to postpone the examination," she said, her voice tight with tension. "Something tells me we're about to face another complication in Ithor's ongoing transformation." Samuel and Tara hurried to the command center, where High Counselor Thex was already coordinating with Earth and Zinthar representatives. A holographic display showed a small, crystalline object decelerating as it entered Ithor's orbit. "We need to investigate this immediately," Thex declared, his eyes scanning the room. "Dr. Vex, assemble a team. We'll need our best scientists and our most uniquely adapted individuals." His gaze settled on Samuel and Tara, who nodded in understanding. As preparations began for the mission to the mysterious object, the couple felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Whatever this new arrival was, it promised to be another pivotal moment in Ithor's extraordinary journey. With a shared glance, Samuel and Tara steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. The transformed world of Ithor had already reshaped their lives in ways they could never have imagined, and now it seemed the next phase of their adventure was about to unfold among the stars. Stars. The crystalline object loomed before them, its faceted surface reflecting the distant sunlight in mesmerizing patterns. Dr. Lara Vex leaned forward, her eyes scanning the readouts on the ship's main console. "We're approaching the object now. Prepare for detailed scans." Samuel and Tara stood behind her, their transformed bodies humming with an energy that seemed to resonate with the mysterious artifact. As the ship drew closer, the object began to unfold, revealing intricate geometric patterns that shifted and changed before their eyes. "It's beautiful," Tara breathed, her bioluminescent markings pulsing in response to the sight. Suddenly, a burst of energy erupted from the unfolding entity, washing over their vessel in a wave of scintillating light. The ship's engines sputtered and died, leaving them drifting in the vast emptiness of space. "We've lost propulsion," Dr. Vex shouted, her fingers flying over the controls. "All systems are offline except for life support and basic functions." Samuel gripped the back of her chair, his crystalline skin glittering with tension. "Can we send a distress signal?" Dr. Vex shook her head. "Communications are down. We're stranded here until we can get the systems back online." With no immediate way to return to Ithor's surface, the research team refocused their efforts on studying the expanding crystalline structure. Samuel and Tara, drawing on their enhanced abilities, stepped forward and placed their hands on a specially designed interface panel. As their palms made contact, a surge of information flooded their minds. Complex data streams flowed through their transformed nervous systems, bypassing the ship's disabled computers and feeding directly into their consciousness. "It's communicating with us," Samuel gasped, his eyes wide with wonder. Tara nodded, her face a mask of concentration. "I can feel it. It's like nothing I've ever experienced before." Dr. Vex watched in fascination as the couple's crystal formations pulsed with light, mirroring the rhythms of the unfolding object outside. "What are you receiving?" she asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her concern for their predicament. "Coordinates," Samuel replied, his voice distant. "Dozens of them spread across the galaxy. They're other worlds, transformed worlds." As Samuel and Tara continued to process the incoming data, the scene on Ithor's surface was undergoing its own dramatic developments. In a secure chamber within the central research facility, Dr. Evelyn Reeves and a team of scientists gathered around Lyra's crystal cocoon. The translucent shell pulsed with an inner light, growing brighter with each passing moment. Hairline fractures appeared across its surface, spreading like a web of lightning. "It's happening," Dr. Reeves whispered, her eyes fixed on the cracking cocoon. "Everyone, record everything. We can't miss a single detail." With a sound like breaking glass, the cocoon shattered. Lyra emerged, her body covered in intricate crystal patterns that put even Samuel and Tara's transformations to shame. The crystals seemed to flow seamlessly with her biological systems, pulsing with a life of their own. Lyra opened her eyes, which now shimmered with an otherworldly light. She raised her hand, and the crystal fragments from her cocoon rose into the air, swirling around her in a dazzling display of control. "Incredible," Dr. Reeves breathed, furiously taking notes. "Lyra, how do you feel?" Lyra turned to face the assembled scientists, a smile playing across her crystalline features. "Connected," she replied, her voice resonating with a new depth. "I can feel the entire crystal network of Ithor. It's part of me now." As if to demonstrate, Lyra extended her hand toward a nearby crystal formation. The structure responded instantly, reshaping itself into complex geometries at the mere thought from the transformed Ithorian. Word of Lyra's emergence spread quickly through the facility. High Counselor Thex, upon hearing the news, immediately called for an emergency session of the Crystal Integration Council. "We must assess the implications of these advanced transformations," Thex announced to the hastily assembled group. "The future of our world may well depend on our decisions today." As the council debated, Colonel Hawthorne sat in the medical bay, his condition now stabilized. The crystal patches on his skin had stopped spreading, settling into a pattern that mirrored the transformation's early stages in Samuel and Tara. Dr. Vex's voice crackled over the facility's communication system, patched through from the stranded research vessel. "We've made contact with the object," she reported. "Samuel and Tara are receiving vast amounts of data, including coordinates to other transformed worlds across the galaxy." The news sent a ripple of excitement and concern through the assembled leaders. Ambassador Zreltor, who had been observing the proceedings, stepped forward. "This confirms our suspicions," the Zinthar representative stated. "We are not alone in this transformation. We must act quickly to understand the full scope of what is happening." As if in response to the rising tension, the void leviathan appeared in Ithor's skies once more. Its massive form began to weave complex patterns of energy around the planet, creating a visible field that extended far into space. On Earth, news of the developments on Ithor sparked intense debate among world leaders. Emergency meetings were called, and quarantine protocols were hastily implemented for all personnel returning from the transformed world. Back in orbit, Samuel and Tara continued to process the flood of information from the now fully unfolded crystalline object. The vast fractal communication array pulsed with energy, sending powerful signals towards the coordinates of other transformed worlds. "It's activating," Tara exclaimed, her eyes wide with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The network is coming online. As the array's energy output increased, Ithor's surface underwent a dramatic transformation. The crystal forest expanded rapidly, covering nearly the entire planet in a matter of hours. Non-transformed settlements were forced to evacuate, leading to rising tensions between the changed and unchanged populations. Admiral Helena Vance, watching the situation unfold from her command ship, made a decision. "Position the fleet around Ithor," she ordered. "We need to be prepared for any eventuality." The research vessel carrying Samuel, Tara, and Dr. Vex finally regained limited power, allowing them to begin a controlled descent back to Ithor's surface. As they re-entered the atmosphere, they gasped at the sight below them. The planet they had left behind was barely recognizable, now a glittering jewel of crystal structures and pulsating energy pathways. Landing amidst the transformed landscape, they were quickly escorted to a massive crystal dome that served as the new central hub for monitoring the ongoing planetary changes. Inside, they found Lara demonstrating her abilities to an awestruck audience of scientists and officials. As Samuel and Tara approached, their crystal formations began to resonate with Lyra's more advanced structures. The interaction triggered a sudden, shared vision among the three transformed individuals. They saw flashes of other worlds, vast networks of crystals spanning the cosmos, all pulsing with a singular, imminent purpose. High Counselor Thex, observing the trio's reaction, turned to address the assembled representatives from Earth, Zinthar, and the Galactic Council. His voice was grave as he spoke the words that would set in motion the next phase of Ithor's extraordinary journey. "In light of these unprecedented events, I hereby declare a state of planetary emergency. The transformation of our world is accelerating beyond our ability to control or predict. We must act now, together, to face whatever comes next." As the leaders scrambled to formulate a response, Samuel, Tara, and Lara stood at the center of the crystal dome, their bodies humming with the energy of a transformation that now extended far beyond the borders of their world. The true scope of their journey was only beginning to unfold, promising challenges and discoveries that would reshape the very fabric of the galaxy. Galaxy. As the gravity of High Counselor Thex's words settled over the assembled representatives, a series of alarms blared throughout the crystal dome. "Emergency protocols activated," announced an automated voice. "All non-essential personnel, please proceed to designated evacuation zones." Samuel, Tara, and Lara exchanged glances, their crystal formations pulsing in unison. Without a word, they moved towards the exit, their enhanced abilities driving them to action. "Where are you going?" Dr. Reeves called after them. "To help," Tara replied, her voice resonating with newfound purpose. Outside, chaos reigned as the crystal forest surged forward, consuming buildings and landscapes in its relentless advance. The trio sprinted toward the nearest settlement, where panicked Ithorians scrambled to gather their belongings. "This way," Samuel shouted, gesturing towards a clear path. His crystalline skin glowed as he focused his energy, manipulating the encroaching crystal structures to form a protective barrier. Tara joined him, her bioluminescent markings flashing as she extended the barrier, creating a corridor for the evacuees. "Hurry," she urged the fleeing Ithorians. "Follow the lighted path." Lara, her more advanced abilities now in full force, reached out with her mind. The ground beneath their feet shifted, crystal formations rising to create elevated platforms that lifted groups of evacuees above the spreading forest. As they worked, Earth's fleet maintained its position around Ithor. On the bridge of her command ship, Admiral Helena Vance watched the unfolding situation with growing concern. "Ma'am," her second-in-command reported, "we're picking up unusual readings from our forward sensors. The crystal energy seems to be interfering with our systems." Vance's brow furrowed. "Pull back the main fleet to a safe distance. Leave only essential vessels in close orbit. We can't risk losing our entire defensive capability." On the surface, the Crystal Integration Council convened an emergency session. Reports flooded in from across the planet, detailing the rapid spread of the transformation. "We're receiving word of spontaneous transformations among previously unaffected Ithorians," a council member announced, her voice tight with tension. High Counselor Thex leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Establish quarantine zones immediately. We must contain and study these new cases." In a hastily constructed field laboratory near one of the largest crystal nodes, Dr. Evelyn Reeves and her team worked feverishly to understand the accelerating transformation. "The energy output from the planet is off the charts," she muttered, studying a holographic display. "It's acting as a catalyst, affecting all organic matter on Ithor." Overhead, the void leviathan moved closer to the planet. Tendrils of its cosmic form stretched downward, making contact with the tallest crystal spires. Energy crackled between the massive entity and the planet's surface, creating a visible network that pulsed with otherworldly power. High Counselor Thex, observing this new development, made a swift decision. "We need to harness this energy," he declared. "Begin construction of a crystal receiver at the North Pole immediately." As Ithorians, Earth engineers, and Zinthar technologists rushed to begin work on the massive structure, Samuel and Tara found themselves drawn to each other. In a quiet moment amidst the chaos, they embraced. A surge of energy pulsed through them, rippling outward through nearby crystal formations. Dr. Reeves, witnessing this phenomenon, approached them with curiosity burning in her eyes. "I'd like to run some tests," she said. "There may be a connection between emotional states and crystal energy manipulation." Meanwhile, Colonel Hawthorne, his body now partially transformed, led a team into the newly formed crystal caverns beneath Ithor's surface. They moved cautiously through the glittering tunnels, their lights reflecting off countless facets. "Look at this," Hawthorne breathed, running his hand over a pulsating crystal formation. "It's like a biological computer." As the team explored deeper, they discovered vast chambers filled with similar structures, each processing and storing unimaginable amounts of data. Above ground, the Zinthar shared their advanced technology with the Ithorian and Earth scientists. Ambassador Zereltor presented blueprints for a device capable of translating the crystal data. "With this," Zereltor explained, "we can unlock the secrets stored within the planet's new structure." As construction on the translation device began, Ithor's transformation continued to accelerate. The sky took on an opalescent sheen, energy waves rippling across its surface. New weather patterns formed, crystal-infused storms sweeping across the landscape and depositing glittering energized precipitation. In orbit, the Interstellar Transformation Task Force worked tirelessly to coordinate efforts across the planet. Ambassador Zereltor, overseeing operations from the orbital station, received an urgent communication from the Galactic Council. "A temporary quarantine has been implemented," the Council representative announced. "No ships are to enter or leave the Ithorian system until further notice." As protests and debates erupted across the galaxy, Lara made a startling discovery. Her enhanced connection to the crystal network allowed her to perceive faint signals from distant coordinates. "I can feel them," she whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "Other worlds, transformed like ours." The news sent shockwaves through the task force, as discussions about potential communication with these distant planets began. Samuel, Tara, and Lara found themselves once again at the heart of Ithor's ongoing metamorphosis. The crystal forest now covered over 95% of the planet's surface, its glittering expanse visible even from space. As night fell, the transformed world glowed with an inner light, a beacon of change in the vast darkness of the cosmos. In the crystal dome that served as their base of operations, Samuel, Tara, and Lara stood together, their bodies humming with the energy of their evolving abilities. The challenges they had faced so far paled in comparison to what lay ahead. As the planet pulsed with newfound power, they prepared themselves for the next phase of their extraordinary journey. As the planet continued its metamorphosis, Samuel, Tara, and Lara found themselves at the forefront of managing Ithor's rapidly evolving ecosystem. The trio moved swiftly across the crystalline landscape, their enhanced abilities allowing them to manipulate the surrounding structures with ease. Samuel raised his hands, directing a surge of energy to create a protective barrier around a group of non-transformed Ithorians. "This way," he called out, guiding the frightened citizens to safety. "The crystal won't penetrate this shield." Tara worked alongside him, her bioluminescent markings pulsing as she redirected energy flows away from vulnerable areas. "We need to establish more safe zones," she said, her voice tinged with urgency. The transformation is accelerating faster than we anticipated. Lara, her connection to the crystal network growing stronger by the hour, closed her eyes and extended her senses. I can feel the energy patterns shifting, she murmured. We need to move quickly to the northern sector. As they raced to protect the remaining pockets of Ithor's original ecosystem, Earth engineers and Zinthar technologists labored tirelessly at the planet's north pole. The massive crystal receiver, a towering structure that gleamed in the altered sunlight, was nearing completion. Dr. Marcus Wong, the lead Earth engineer, wiped sweat from his brow as he made final adjustments to the device's energy absorption matrix. We're ready for the initial power-up sequence, he announced to the assembled team. Ambassador Zrelter nodded, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the shimmering crystal landscape. Proceed with caution, Dr. Wong. We cannot predict how this will affect the Void Leviathan's energy web. As the receiver hummed to life, visible ripples of energy coursed through the air. The Void Leviathan, still suspended in Ithor's orbit, seemed to react to the sudden draw of power. Its cosmic form undulated, tendrils of energy fluctuating in response to the receiver's activation. Deep beneath the planet's surface, Colonel Hawthorne led his team through a maze of glittering crystal caverns. Their lights cast dancing shadows on the walls, revealing intricate patterns etched into the crystalline structures. Hold up, Hawthorne called out, raising a hand to halt his team's progress. Before them stood a massive chamber, its walls pulsing with an inner light. At the center, suspended in a column of energy, floated a large crystal sphere embedded with complex circuitry. My God, whispered one of the team members. What is that? Hawthorne approached cautiously, his partially transformed body resonating with the artifact's energy. As he drew closer, the sphere began to emit a low hum, its surface flickering with patterns of light. This is Hawthorne, he said into his comm device. I need to speak with High Counselor Thex immediately. We found something extraordinary. Within hours, a specialized Zinthar archaeological team arrived at the site, led by the renowned scientist Dr. Selmora. The alien researcher's eyes widened as she took in the ancient artifact. Fascinating, she breathed, her slender fingers dancing over holographic displays. This appears to be of Ithorian origin, but far more advanced than anything in your historical records. As the Zinthar team began their analysis, Samuel and Tara arrived at the chamber, summoned by the urgency in Hawthorne's voice. The moment they entered, the crystal sphere pulsed with blinding intensity. A wave of energy burst forth, washing over everyone present. Samuel gasped as he felt his abilities surge, his connection to the crystal network amplifying tenfold. Tara stumbled, overwhelmed by the sudden influx of power. What's happening? She managed to ask, her voice strained. Dr. Zelmora's instruments whirred frantically. The artifact is emitting a powerful resonance frequency, she explained. It appears to be enhancing the abilities of all transformed Ithorians, planet-wide. Above the planet, the orbital communication array crackled with newfound energy. Technicians scrambled to adjust settings as the signal strength spiked beyond predicted levels. We're picking up something, one of the operators announced, eyes wide with excitement. It's faint, but it's definitely a response from one of the distant transformed worlds. The contact was brief, lasting only seconds, but it provided a tantalizing glimpse of another world undergoing a similar metamorphosis. Data streamed in, painting a picture of a planet where crystal structures had merged with organic life in ways yet unseen on Ithor. As the planet buzzed with this new development, Admiral Helena Vance stood on the bridge of her command ship, her brow furrowed in concentration. A holographic display before her showed an anomaly approaching the Ithorian system at incredible speed. Ma'am, her second-in-command reported, initial scans suggest it's another crystalline object, similar to the one that arrived earlier. Vance's eyes narrowed. Alert the Ithorian government and the task force. Initiate emergency protocols immediately. On the surface, the accelerated transformation began to affect non-organic matter. Samuel and Tara watched in amazement as vehicles and buildings sprouted crystal growths, merging with the evolving landscape. This is unprecedented, Dr. Evelyn Reeves muttered, furiously inputting data into her handheld device. The crystal energy is no longer limited to organic matter. We need to evacuate our research facilities before they're compromised. As chaos threatened to engulf the planet once more, Samuel and Tara found themselves drawn to each other. In a moment of relative calm, they stood hand in hand, their crystal forms resonating in perfect harmony. "Whatever comes next," Samuel said softly, "we'll face it together." Tara nodded, her eyes reflecting the shimmering landscape around them. "Together," she agreed, just as alarms began to blare across the planet. The anomaly had entered the Ithorian system, revealing itself to be a crystalline vessel of staggering proportions. As it approached, energy levels across Ithor spiked dramatically, sending shockwaves through the planet's transformation process. Samuel, Tara, and Lara felt a faint signal pulsing through the crystal network. As they focused on it, a message began to form in their minds. The arrival of this ship marked the beginning of the next phase in Ithor's cosmic journey. The massive vessel took up position in orbit, its surface shimmering with complex patterns of light. Ithor stood on the brink of an unprecedented evolutionary leap, poised to take its next step into an unknown future. The massive crystalline vessel loomed over Ithor, its presence immediately triggering a cascade of changes across the planet's surface. Samuel and Tara watched in awe as the already transformed landscape began to shift and grow at an unprecedented rate. Existing crystal structures elongated and reshaped themselves, creating intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with newfound energy. "We need to move," Samuel said urgently, turning to Tara. "The safe zones won't hold for long against this level of transformation." They sprinted across the rapidly changing terrain, their partially crystallized bodies allowing them to navigate the treacherous landscape with ease. As they ran, they could see groups of non-transformed Ithorians fleeing towards the remaining safe zones they had established earlier. "This way," Tara called out, redirecting a group of panicked citizens. "Follow the blue crystal path. It will lead you to safety." In orbit, the Interstellar Transformation Task Force's station buzzed with frantic activity. Ambassador Zereltor's multifaceted eyes reflected the holographic displays surrounding him as he addressed the assembled team. "We must establish communication with the crystalline vessel immediately," he declared. "Prepare the combined Earth-Xanthor-Ithorian array for deployment." As technicians rushed to assemble the specialized communication device, alarms blared across the station. A junior officer approached Zereltor, his face pale. "Ambassador, we're detecting massive energy fluctuations from the planet's surface," he reported. "It's centered on the location of the artifact discovered by Colonel Hawthorne's team." Deep beneath Ithor's crystalline surface, the ancient sphere pulsed with an otherworldly light. Dr. Selmora and her team worked feverishly to analyze the sudden surge of activity. "The artifact's energy signature is synchronizing with the orbiting vessel," she announced, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "It's creating some kind of link between them." Colonel Hawthorne, his body now more crystal than flesh, placed a hand on the chamber wall. "I can feel it," he murmured. "It's like the planet is waking up." On the surface, Samuel and Tara raced towards the North Pole receiver. They could see the massive structure straining under the influx of energy from both the void leviathan and the new crystalline ship. "If that thing overloads, it could destabilize the entire planet," Tara shouted over the growing wind. They reached the base of the receiver, its crystalline surface crackling with excess energy. Samuel raised his hands, focusing his evolved abilities to create a protective field around the structure. Tara joined him, their combined efforts forming a shimmering barrier that absorbed and redirected the surging power. As they maintained the field, both felt a strange sensation rippling through their bodies. Samuel looked down at his arms, watching in fascination as his skin became more translucent, taking on a faceted appearance. "Tara, look," he said, his voice filled with a mix of awe and apprehension. She nodded, examining her own changing form. "It's happening to me too. The transformation is accelerating." In orbit, Admiral Helena Vance stood rigid on the bridge of her command ship, her eyes fixed on the sensor readings before her. "What in God's name?" she breathed. The massive crystalline vessel was emitting powerful energy surges that interacted with Ithor's atmosphere. The sky above the planet erupted in a dazzling display of color, aurora-like patterns stretching from pole to pole. "Ma'am," her second-in-command reported, "we're detecting a significant increase in the planet's gravitational field. Seismic activity is on the rise." On the surface, Dr. Evelyn Reeves and her team scrambled to save what research they could as crystal growths began to sprout from their equipment. "It's not just organic matter anymore," she shouted, grabbing a data core as a crystal formation enveloped her workstation. "Everything is being affected. We need to evacuate now." The Crystal Integration Council, faced with the rapidly deteriorating situation, sprang into action. High Counselor Thex's voice echoed through emergency broadcasts across the planet. "All non-transformed citizens are to report to the nearest crystal dome immediately," he announced. "These structures have been designed to shield you from the transformation energy. Please remain calm and follow the instructions of your local authorities." As the evacuation efforts intensified, Lara stood atop a crystal spire, her eyes closed in concentration. The visions came faster now, more vivid than ever before. She saw vast crystal cities stretching across alien worlds, life forms of impossible beauty and complexity, technologies that defied imagination. Opening her eyes, she activated her communication device. "This is Lara reporting to the task force," she said, her voice filled with urgency. "I have new information about the potential future of our evolution. You need to hear this." Colonel Hawthorne led his team deeper into the expanding network of crystal caverns. They entered a vast chamber filled with pulsating structures that resembled organic computers. "Incredible," one of his team members whispered, running a scanner over the nearest formation. "These structures are processing and storing data at rates we can barely measure." As they moved to investigate further, a dormant crystal growth in the corner of the chamber suddenly sprang to life. It spread rapidly, forcing the team to retreat. "Fall back," Hawthorne ordered, watching as the crystal growth consumed everything in its path. "We need to seal off this section before it reaches the upper levels." Above ground, a fleet of Zinthar ships entered the Ithorian system, their sleek forms contrasting sharply with the crystalline chaos below. They deployed immediately, setting up a network of energy-dampening fields around the planet's equator. Ambassador Zreltor's voice crackled over the comlink. "The containment field is our last line of defense," he explained to the task force. "It should create a buffer zone between the fully transformed regions and what remains of the original ecosystem." As the transformation of Ithor continued to accelerate, the planet itself seemed to groan under the strain. Seismic sensors detected massive changes in the core, crystal formations penetrating deep into the mantle. Suddenly, geysers of crystalline material erupted from the surface, shooting high into the atmosphere before raining down in glittering showers. New landforms took shape before the eyes of the astonished observers, mountains rising and valleys forming in a matter of minutes. The void leviathan, still tethered to Ithor through its energy web, began to change as well. Its cosmic form became more defined, crystalline structures forming along its vast body. These new growths pulsed with energy, creating visible connections between the leviathan, Ithor, and the orbiting crystalline vessel. In the midst of this chaos, the communication array deployed by the task force finally established a tentative link with the mysterious ship. The first transmission was not a message in any recognizable language, but a series of complex energy patterns. As these patterns were processed through Ithor's crystal network, they manifested as three-dimensional holographic structures floating above the planet's surface. Samuel and Tara, their bodies now significantly transformed, found themselves drawn to these ethereal constructs. Reaching out, Samuel was surprised to find he could interact directly with the hologram. As his crystalline hand passed through the structure, it solidified, taking on physical form. "Tara, look at this," he called out, manipulating the energy to create a temporary shelter. "We can use this to help with the evacuation efforts." As they worked to create emergency structures and pathways for the displaced Ithorians, a new development unfolded above them. The energy patterns emitted by the crystalline vessel began to coalesce, forming a tightly focused beam of intense light. The beam descended from the ship, touching down precisely at the location of the ancient artifact in the underground cavern. The moment it made contact, a massive surge of energy raced through the planet's crystal network. Samuel and Tara stumbled as the ground beneath them trembled. They looked at each other, their faceted eyes reflecting the shimmering landscape around them. "What's happening now?" Tara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Samuel shook his head, his crystalline form resonating with the planet's energy. "I don't know," he replied, "but I think this is just the beginning." As the energy surge continued to build, the transformed surface of Ithor began to shift once more. New structures rose from the ground, more complex and intricate than anything seen before. The sky above churned with crystalline clouds, flashing with internal lightning that seemed to carry information rather than simply electricity. The next phase of Ithor's cosmic evolution had begun, and no one, not the task force, not the Zinthar, not even Samuel and Tara, could predict where it would lead. As the planet continued its metamorphosis, the fate of its inhabitants and the implications for the galaxy at large hung in the balance, waiting to be revealed. As the planet continued its metamorphosis, the beam of intense energy from the crystalline vessel made contact with the ancient artifact in the underground cavern. The moment of connection sent a shock wave through Ithor's crystal network, triggering a cascade of physical transformations that swept across the planet's surface with breathtaking speed. Samuel and Tara stumbled as the ground beneath them shifted and buckled. Crystal formations erupted from the earth, growing and reshaping at an unprecedented rate. The landscape they had just traversed was now unrecognizable, a maze of towering spires and intricate lattices. "We need to move faster," Samuel called out, his crystalline form resonating with the planet's surging energy. "The safe zones won't hold against this level of change." Tara nodded, her fasted eyes scanning the horizon. "Look," she exclaimed, pointing to a group of non-transformed Ithorians fleeing from a rapidly advancing wall of crystal growth. "We have to help them." The pair sprinted towards the group, their partially crystallized bodies allowing them to navigate the treacherous terrain with ease. As they ran, Samuel focused his evolving abilities to create a temporary bridge of solidified energy, spanning a widening chasm that had opened in the planet's crust. "This way," Tara shouted to the group, gesturing towards the shimmering construct. "Cross quickly, it won't hold for long." As the last of the Ithorians made it safely across, the bridge dissolved, consumed by the relentless tide of crystal growth. Samuel and Tara led the group towards one of the protective crystal domes that loomed in the distance, its translucent surface pulsing with stabilizing energy. High above, Admiral Helena Vance watched the chaos unfold from the bridge of her command ship. The planet's surface was a kaleidoscope of shifting patterns, visible even from orbit. New landmasses were emerging from the oceans, while existing continents reshaped themselves into a complex grid-like pattern. "Deploy all available vessels," Vance ordered, her voice tight with urgency. "Priority is evacuation of non-transformed civilians to the crystal domes. Use tractor beams if necessary." As Earth ships descended into Ithor's atmosphere, they encountered unexpected resistance. The intense crystal energy field surrounding the planet interfered with their systems, causing alarming fluctuations in power and navigation. "Admiral," her second-in-command reported, "we're experiencing severe malfunctions as we approach the surface. The crystal energy is disrupting our shields and propulsion systems." Vance's eyes hardened. "Adapt and overcome. We can't abandon those people down there." On the surface, Dr. Zelmora and her team worked feverishly to counter the failure of the Zinthar containment technology. The energy-dampening fields around Ithor's equator had overloaded, allowing the crystal growth to accelerate unchecked. "Redirect power to the localized containment bubbles," Zelmora shouted over the din of alarms and crackling energy. "Focus on Dr. Reeves' field laboratory and other critical research areas." As the newly formed containment bubbles shimmered into existence, Dr. Evelyn Reeves and her team redoubled their efforts to understand and potentially control the transformation process. Deep within the expanding network of crystal caverns, Colonel Hawthorne led his exploration team through a maze of pulsating energy conduits. Their partially transformed bodies allowed them to sense the flow of power from the planet's core to the surface. "This way," Hawthorne called, his crystalline hand brushing against a particularly strong energy current. I think I've found something. The team emerged into a vast underground chamber, its walls lined with what appeared to be organic computers of impossible complexity. Holographic displays flickered to life as they entered, showing real-time data on Ithor's transformation. My God, one of Hawthorne's team members breathed. It's some kind of control center. Before they could investigate further, a low rumble shook the chamber. Through a newly formed crystal viewport, they witnessed an awe-inspiring sight. The void leviathan, its cosmic body now almost entirely crystalline, was descending towards Ithor's surface. As the massive entity entered the atmosphere, its form began to break apart. Thousands of crystalline fragments separated from the main body, each one streaking across the sky like a meteor shower of impossible beauty. On the surface, Samuel and Tara watched in amazement as the fragments rained down around them. Wherever a shard landed, it triggered an intense burst of transformation, accelerating the crystal growth in its immediate vicinity. We can use this, Tara realized, reaching out to touch one of the fallen fragments. As her crystalline fingers made contact, she felt a surge of power and understanding flow through her. Samuel nodded, comprehending her intent without words. Together, they focused their abilities on the Leviathan fragments, using them as catalysts to shape the changing landscape. The holographic structures they had created earlier began to evolve, integrating with Ithor's surface to form bridges, shelters, and defensive barriers. As they worked, Lara joined them, her eyes glowing with newfound knowledge. I can see it all, she said, her voice filled with wonder. The planet's history, the nature of its transformation. It's all there in the crystal network. With Lara's guidance, Samuel and Tara refined their efforts, their abilities growing more precise and powerful with each passing moment. They shaped crystal growths into evacuation routes, created safe passages through unstable areas, and reinforced the protective domes housing the non-transformed Ithorians. In orbit, the Interstellar Transformation Task Force had established a temporary base within one of the largest crystal domes. Ambassador Zereltor coordinated the combined efforts of Earth, Xanthar, and Ithorian forces, deploying a network of advanced sensors to monitor and analyze the ongoing transformation. As the crisis reached its peak, a column of crystalline energy erupted from the underground cavern where the ancient artifact had been discovered. The artifact rose to the surface, carried aloft by the surge of power. It emerged at the center of a newly formed continent, manifesting as a massive crystal spire that dwarfed all surrounding structures. The spire pulsed with energy, emitting waves that resonated with the orbiting crystalline vessel, the scattered void leviathan fragments, and Ithor's very core. As the frequencies aligned, the planet's atmosphere began to crystallize, forming a shimmering, protective layer that encased the entire world. Samuel, Tara, and Lara found themselves drawn to the central spire, their transformed bodies allowing them to ascend its dizzying height with ease. From this vantage point, they could see the full scope of Ithor's metamorphosis, a world reborn in crystal and light. As they stood atop the spire, using their combined abilities to stabilize the planet's transformation, they sensed a new presence. The massive crystalline vessel that had triggered this change was now descending through the newly formed atmospheric layer, its energy emissions intensifying as it approached the surface. Samuel turned to Tara and Lara, his faceted eyes reflecting the approaching ship. Whatever happens next, he said, his voice resonating with crystalline harmonics, we face it together. The trio linked hands, their crystalline forms merging slightly at the point of contact. As one, they reached out with their enhanced senses, prepared to meet whatever new change or challenge the descending vessel might bring to their transformed world. As the crystalline vessel descended through Ithor's shimmering atmosphere, Samuel, Tara, and Lara braced themselves atop the central spire. Their partially transformed bodies resonated with the planet's energy, allowing them to manipulate the crystal structure beneath their feet. We need to create a landing platform, Samuel said, his voice carrying a slight crystalline echo. Focus your energy on expanding this section of the spire. Together, they channeled their newfound abilities, willing the crystal beneath them to grow and flatten. The spire's peak widened into a smooth circular platform large enough to accommodate the approaching ship. As the vessel touched down, its crystalline structure seamlessly merged with the platform, creating a perfect seal. A moment of silence fell over the scene, broken only by the faint hum of energy coursing through the planet's crystal network. Suddenly, a portal materialized on the ship's exterior. Samuel and Tara exchanged a glance, their faceted eyes reflecting a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Lara stepped forward, her posture radiating curiosity. From the portal emerged a group of beings unlike any they had ever seen. Their bodies were composed entirely of living crystal, shimmering with an inner light that pulsed in complex patterns. The leader of the group, a towering figure that stood head and shoulders above the rest, approached the trio. Without speaking aloud, the being projected its thoughts directly into their minds. "I am Zixlian of the Crystalline Collective. We have come to guide Ithor through its cosmic evolution." Samuel felt a flood of information wash over him, conveyed through the crystal-based telepathy. He saw visions of other transformed worlds, all connected through a vast network of energy pathways spanning the galaxy. Tara, her palms sweating from the influx of knowledge, managed to ask, "Why Ithor? Why now?" Zixlian's form shimmered as it responded. "And Ithor has reached a crucial stage in its development. The confluence of the ancient artifact, the void leviathan, and your own intervention has created the perfect conditions for ascension." As Zixlian spoke, movement caught their attention. The scattered fragments of the void leviathan began to coalesce across Ithor's surface. They formed into smaller, more manageable entities that took up positions around the planet's equator. Lara gasped, her enhanced senses allowing her to perceive the intricate dance of energies. "They're integrating with the planet's crystal network," she exclaimed, "becoming guardians." Zixlian nodded, its crystalline form catching the light. "Indeed, they will enhance Ithor's defenses and its ability to harness cosmic energy." The leader of the Crystalline Collective turned its attention back to Samuel, Tara, and Lara. "Now you face a choice. You can complete your transformation, becoming fully crystalline beings like us, or you can retain a portion of your original forms while gaining the ability to switch between states." The weight of the decision hung in the air. Samuel looked at Tara, seeing the same mix of excitement and uncertainty in her eyes that he felt. Before they could respond, a commotion from below caught their attention. Dr. Evelyn Reeves and her team had emerged from their field laboratory, excitement evident in their voices and gestures. "We've done it," Dr. Reeves called out as she approached the platform. "We've developed a method to create stable, hybrid forms. It allows individuals to retain aspects of their original biology while incorporating crystalline elements." The news sent a ripple of excitement through the gathered group. Zixlian's form pulsed with interest. This discovery could provide a middle path for those who wish to adapt without losing their original identities entirely. As they discussed the implications of this breakthrough, Colonel Hawthorne's voice crackled over the communication system. "Central Spire, this is Hawthorne. We've made significant progress in the underground control center. We're starting to activate long-dormant systems that could help regulate the planet's core energy output and manage its crystalline ecosystems." Zixlian's form brightened. "Excellent. With our guidance, you can bring Ithor's transformation under more precise control." As the group on the spire absorbed this flurry of developments, High Counselor Thex's holographic image appeared before them. "Esteemed visitors, transformed citizens, I bring news of great importance. In light of these monumental changes, I have initiated a planet-wide referendum. Our people must decide whether to fully embrace our world's new crystalline nature or to maintain enclaves of our original environment." The implications of this decision hung in the air, adding another layer of complexity to the already overwhelming situation. Samuel, Tara, and Lara exchanged glances, recognizing that their own choice would likely influence the outcome of the referendum. As they contemplated their next move, a new signal came through. Admiral Helena Vance's voice filled the air, tinged with a mix of awe and persistence. "This is Admiral Vance. I've received new orders from Earth's government. We're authorized to negotiate for access to crystal transformation technology. The potential benefits for addressing our own planetary issues are too significant to ignore." Zixlian's form pulsed with what seemed to be approval. The sharing of knowledge is a fundamental aspect of the galactic crystal network. We welcome this opportunity for collaboration. As the implications of these rapid developments settled over the group, Zixlian turned its attention back to Samuel, Tara, and Lyra. The time has come for you to make your choice. Will you fully embrace the crystalline form or opt for a hybrid existence? Your decision will shape not only your own futures, but also Ithor's role in the broader galactic community. Samuel took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment. He looked at Tara, then at Lyra, seeing the same mix of anticipation and grit in their eyes. Whatever they decided, it was clear that Ithor stood on the brink of a new era, one that would reshape not just their world, but potentially the entire galaxy. Samuel, Tara, and Lyra exchanged glances, their crystalline forms shimmering with anticipation. The weight of their decision hung in the air, but a shared understanding passed between them. "We choose the hybrid existence," Samuel announced, his voice resonating with newfound clarity. "It's time to embrace our new nature while honoring our past." Zixlian's form pulsed with approval. "A wise choice. Now let us show you the true potential of your transformation." With a gesture, Zixlian opened a shimmering portal in the air before them. The swirling energy crackled with possibility, casting prismatic reflections across the crystal platform. "Step through," Zixlian urged. "Experience the wonders of a fully transformed world." Taking a deep breath, Samuel grasped Tara's hand. Lyra moved to stand beside them, her eyes wide with curiosity. Together, they stepped forward into the unknown. As they passed through the portal, a rush of sensation overwhelmed them. Colors they had never seen before danced across their vision, and they felt the vibrations of cosmic energy coursing through their bodies. When the world solidified around them, they found themselves standing on the surface of an alien planet. The landscape before them was a breathtaking tapestry of crystal structures stretching as far as the eye could see. Towering spires of iridescent crystal reached toward the sky, while intricate networks of crystalline pathways crisscrossed the terrain. "It's beautiful," Tara whispered, her voice filled with awe. As they took in the sight, movement caught their attention. Floating gracefully above the ground were beings of pure crystal energy. These entities approached the trio, their translucent forms rippling with light and color. "Achim, welcome, friends from Ithor," one of the beings communicated directly into their minds. "We are the lumini, and we greet you in peace." Samuel stepped forward, his partially crystalline form allowing him to interface seamlessly with the alien beings. "We come seeking knowledge and understanding," he replied, his thoughts flowing effortlessly through the crystal network. Illumine approached, its form shimmering with curiosity. It reached out, gently touching Samuel's arm. In an instant, a flood of memories and experiences flowed between them. Samuel gasped, overwhelmed by the depth of the connection. "Incredible," he breathed, turning to Tara and Lyra. Their entire history, their culture, their understanding of the universe, it's all there, shared in a single touch. Tara and Lara eagerly made contact with other lumini, their faces lighting up with wonder as they experienced the profound exchange of knowledge and emotion. While Samuel and Tara immersed themselves in learning about the lumini civilization, Lyra found herself drawn to a large crystal formation at the center of a nearby plaza. As she approached, she felt the familiar tug of a planet-wide network, similar to what she had experienced on Ithor. Placing her hand on the crystal, Lyra closed her eyes and let her consciousness expand into the network. Images and information flooded her mind, revealing the history of this world's transformation. "This planet," she called out to Samuel and Tara, her voice filled with excitement. "It underwent a process similar to Ithor centuries ago. They've since become a thriving hub in a galactic crystal network." As Lyra delved deeper into the planet's history, Samuel and Tara continued their interactions with the lumini. They learned about the intricacies of crystal-based life, the possibilities of energy manipulation, and the vast network of transformed worlds spread across the galaxy. Hours passed like minutes as they absorbed knowledge and experiences beyond their wildest dreams. When they finally regrouped, their faces were alight with the possibilities they had discovered. We need to share this with Ithor, Tara said, her eyes shining. The potential for our world, for our people. It's beyond anything we could have imagined. Samuel nodded in agreement. This is just the beginning. With this knowledge, we can help guide Ithor through its transformation and into a new era of exploration and discovery. Lara, her mind still processing the vast amount of information she had gleaned from the planet's network, smiled at her companions. And we'll be there every step of the way, bridging the gap between our past and our future. As they prepared to return to Ithor, the lumini gathered around them. The leader of the group stepped forward, its crystalline form pulsing with warm light. Remember, it communicated, you are now part of something greater. The galactic crystal network welcomes Ithor and its people. May your world shine brightly among the stars. With a final exchange of gratitude and farewells, Samuel, Tara, and Lara stepped back through the portal. They returned to Ithor, their minds brimming with new knowledge and their hearts filled with hope for the future that awaited their transformed world.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.